Chapter 95. The Divine Martial Immortal Exterminating Formation is rumored to have been created by the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu. It is a compulsory course for the great Zhou dynasty's Divine Martial Army cultivators. It gathers the mana of many low-level cultivators in one place and instills it into the body of the commander, causing the commander's strength to obtain a qualitative leap. The method was similar to the method of nurturing Dao soldiers in some sections. Using a specific formation, many disciples who cultivated the same Dao technique would be connected into one. As long as there were enough disciples with low cultivations, they would be able to defend against enemies whose cultivations were much higher than theirs but were few in number. And after going through the Marquis of Xuanji's improvements, the Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Formation became even more overbearing and profound. It could actually link the mana of cultivators who practice different Dao techniques into one and form a formation. The Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Formation was the trump card of the great Zhou dynasty. It required at least 100 people to form the formation. At most, it could combine the tens of thousands of cultivators of the Divine Martial Army into one. In the battle of vanquishing Buddhism in the past, the entire Divine Martial Army of tens of thousands of cultivators formed the most powerful Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Formation in history. After fighting for several days and nights, they forcefully blew open the Great Layin Temple's protective formation, the Vairocana Formation. If not for that, the number of allied cultivators who died in front of Mahavairocana would at least double. Naturally, it was impossible for evil to have tens of thousands of cultivators forming a formation to provide him with magic power. However, there were 3,000 of them. That was enough to raise evil's power to an unimaginable level. 3,000 cultivators, even if all of them were at the Qi condensation stage, was a powerful force in itself. Now, everyone's magic power was concentrated together, and there were even dozens of foundation establishment cultivators coordinating and directing them. Therefore, when Lin Feng saw evil setting up the Divine Martial Immortal Exterminating Array, he didn't hesitate at all and jumped back without turning his head. Nonsense. If 3,000 people lined up and each of them gave him a punch, he would still be flattened even after healing. Not to mention, the power of 3,000 people was concentrated in one attack, and there was even evil, a cultivator of the Golden Elixir period, leading the attack. Only an idiot would fight him. "You lunatic, you can't do anything to me in a one-on-one fight, so you bring your brothers to beat me up?" Lin Feng was extremely annoyed. "If you want to beat me up, then beat me up. But you brought 3,000 people to beat me up. Can you be any more shameless?" What made Lin Feng even more worried was that the Divine Martial Immortal Extermination Array had actually locked the nearby space. He had no way to use the Black Cloud Flag's space-time shifting ability to leave this place. This time, he was blocked by the other party in a dead end. Seeing Lin Feng turn into a streak of black light and escape, evil was not in a hurry. Slowly pointing the tip of his sword at the lonely mountain where the Society of the Strong Gale is entrenched, he chuckled. "None of them can escape, all of them will die." With the direction of his sword, the endless murderous aura gathered. The thick fog and miasma over Lonely Mountain had dissipated completely, revealing the gloomy sky. The clouds were so dense that people could not breathe. The commotion created by the Divine Martial Immortal Punishment Formation naturally also alarmed the members of the Society of the Strong Gale on the Lonely Mountain. Facing the Zhou army that had arrived at the city gates, everyone's heart was heavy. Riding on the Black Cloud Flag, Lin Feng flew back to Lonely Mountain and silently hid inside. "Why did you come back?" Dao Jiqiang asked out of the blue. In the battle with evil before, Lin Feng used the Black Cloud Flag to cut off Dao Jiqiang and Wang Lin's perception of the outside world, so they did not know what happened just now. Hearing Dao Jiqiang ask, Lin Feng naturally could not tell him that if it wasn't for me running fast, I would have been locked on by the Divine Martial Immortal Punishment Formation. At that time I wouldn't be able to run even if I wanted to, I could only obediently wait for death. On the contrary, it was at this time that Lin Feng appeared more and more at ease. "Why didn't you send back the information about this place to evil before?" "The reason I came back is the same as you." Dao Jiqiang nodded his head, then said worriedly, The entire 3,000 people of the left camp of the front line are all here, setting up the divine martial immortal punishment formation, and it's also controlled by General Evil. Even facing a Yuanying stage cultivator, they can fight. In his heart, Lin Feng deeply felt the same, but on the surface he only smiled faintly, appearing profound and unfathomable. Fuck, even if all 24 relics are fed to the war god puppet, I'm afraid it still won't work. The other side isn't using a simple human wave tactic, it's a true quantitative change causing a qualitative change. As Lin Feng pondered, he entered into the interior of the mountain, avoiding the hurrying cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale, passing straight through the village towards where Kang Nanhua was underground. He remembered that Kang Nanhua said that he set up some eternal river quicksand formation here, even though he doesn't know the specific power, but from Kang Nanhua's tone it's definitely a large-scale high-level formation. Lin Feng entered the hole, only to see that there were already several people standing inside. Hearing the noise, they all turned their heads around. The person at the front has a dainty appearance, dressed in red, crimson hair like fire, two thin eyebrows like two swords that want to kill, staring at Lin Feng with a pair of almond eyes. It's Yu Hongyan. Lin Feng's gaze flashed. Beside Yu Hongyan is a black-clothed burly man with a long scar on his face. He's also an old acquaintance. It's the Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale who kidnapped Zhu in Tianjing City that day. Seeing Lin Feng, the black-clothed burly man instantly frowned. Even the scar on his face throbbed. What the hell are the people outside doing? Yu Hongyan snorted lowly. Don't talk nonsense, take him down first. While speaking, the 6-meter-long dark halberd was already raised in his hand. Kang Nanhua said at this time, Hongyan, Xiaohei, both of you stop. Yu Hongyan didn't even turn his head, his gaze was still fixed on Lin Feng, calling out, Mr. Kang. Kang Nanhua said, this Taoist has no ill intentions, it's all thanks to him that I was able to recover from my injuries. Yu Hongyan and the rest of the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale were all stunned hearing this, their gazes looking back and forth between Lin Feng and Kang Nanhua in surprise. That black-clothed burly man couldn't help but say, is it the Shenwu army outside? Maybe a wooden sword fell into the hands of the Zhou army. Kang Nanhua sighed lowly, then looked at Lin Feng. If he wanted to harm you guys, why would he help me recover? Not to mention, his strength is only higher than mine, you guys aren't his match. You're already clear about the situation outside? Lin Feng coughed dryly. If he doesn't use the war god puppet, he doesn't have the confidence to defeat Kang Nanhua. Kang Nanhua nodded his head, his expression solemn. The Golden Elixir Period cultivators are leading a team, a total of 3,000 people. They've already set up the Shenwu Immortal Punishment Formation. He turned his head to look at Yu Hongyan and the rest. The Shenwu Immortal Punishment Formation has sealed off the nearby domain space. We can't get out, we can only fight. After defeating the enemy we can make plans to retreat from this place. Yu Hongyan and the rest of the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale all nodded their heads with a solemn expression. Yu Hongyan turned around and gave a few orders to the leaders of the Society of the Strong Gale behind him. These people all nodded their heads in compliance, exiting the tunnel together. They have to go arrange for the mortals and relatives in the village to take refuge and command the members of the society who have the ability to fight to prepare for the final resistance. Yu Hongyan looked at Lin Feng, a pair of crimson-red eyebrows raised. Why did you come back? Could it be that you also can't do anything to the Shenwu army outside and want to rely on Mr. Kang's Eternal River Quicksand Formation for shelter? Lin Feng thought, beauty, you're right, but he naturally won't admit it on the surface. He also didn't say anything, only lightly smiled and then turned his face away, an expression of disdain to answer Yu Hongyan's question. Yu Hongyan faintly frowned. The remaining cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale also revealed a dissatisfied expression. The black-clothed man blocked in front of them, saying in a low voice, everything will be handled by Mr. Kang. Yu Hongyan turned his head and glanced at Kang Nanhua, nodding his head and not saying anything. At this moment, Evil's voice came from outside the mountain, calm and cold. It's like a nest of ants hiding in an ant's nest. Just looking at it makes one feel uncomfortable. All of you go die. A bloody and berserk mana wave shook up. This is precisely Evil's unique slaughter Dao concept. But compared to when he fought Lin Feng one-on-one before, it was countless times stronger. Outside of Lonely Mountain, the 3,000 Shenwu army formed into a battle formation, aggressively standing on the sandy ground in front of Lonely Mountain. Almost endless mana was poured into Evil's body at the front of the formation. Murderous intent filled the sky. This Shenwu immortal slaying formation is like a peerless ominous sword, slowly unsheathing, wanting to slaughter all life and dye the world with blood. And Evil is the sharpest tip of this ominous sword. He pointed his sword at the sky. The dark clouds in the sky instantly changed. The dark clouds in the sky started to spin, slowly forming a huge whirlpool. In the center of the whirlpool, ominous light shot out in all directions. A huge sword tip as black as ink slowly extended out from the center of the dark cloud whirlpool. That sword tip is almost as big as a small half of Lonely Mountain's peak. Within it contains the tyrannical power concept of great terror and great slaughter. Just the terrifying bloody aura alone. If ordinary mortals come into contact with it, they will immediately die. The sword tip pointed straight at Lonely Mountain, ready to go. Chapter 96. Even though they were deep inside the mountain, Lin Feng and the others could clearly feel the horrifying power outside the mountain. Kong Nanhua's injuries were all healed. He stood up and stood on the golden sand dune, but his expression was extremely solemn. He muttered to himself, "The crux of the problem is to see who can hold on first." His hands continuously changed the incantation gestures, and the golden sand dune beneath him shook slowly. Countless golden sand floated into the air, scattering a large amount of sand and dust. The sand bypassed Lin Feng, Yu Hongyan, and the others, and floated out of the pit. The endless golden sand flew out of Lonely Mountain and landed on the sandy ground at the foot of Lonely Mountain. It blended with the grayish-white fine sand on the sandy ground and glittered with golden light. Witnessing this scene, Lin Feng understood in his heart, these golden sand are all sand that Kong Nanhua has refined using her mana. They are very powerful, but the quantity is ultimately limited. Therefore they are all released to move the normal sand outside. It's like training a large group of officers, and now placing them in the basic troops to train new recruits. Evil, who was outside Lonely Mountain, naturally saw it too. He sneered, "Did you also set up a large-scale spell formation here?" With that, he pointed the long sword in his hand. The huge tip of the sword in the center of the vortex of dark clouds in the sky rushed out of the clouds with a piercing whistle, and shot towards Lonely Mountain like a natural disaster at the end of the world. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Evil was also a practical fighter, and he was very experienced in fights of mana. Before Kong Nanhua finished setting up the spell formation, he immediately attacked. Kong Nanhua was not in a hurry. He had already set up the spell formation, and now he just needed to activate it. He changed the incantation gestures again, and the flowing water and the golden sand merged together, turning into a dark yellow stream of water. It flew out of Lonely Mountain and blended into the vast swamp of Ancient Swamp. Boom! There was a loud sound like a flood bursting through a dam. The swamp at the edge of Lonely Mountain's sandy ground was stirred, and it connected with the golden sand that was scattered on the sandy ground. It turned into a mudslide and flooded Lonely Mountain. Eternal River Quicksand Spell Formation. The holy water of the Ganges River surged endlessly. In its calmness, it gave birth to all living things. When it roared, it submerged the world. Kong Nanhua sighed inwardly, "My quicksand hidden treasure is just a fragment of the Eternal Sands quicksand spell. This Eternal Sands quicksand spell can only exert the power of changing quicksand. If I could exert all the changes of the spell formation, I would be able to break this divine martial immortal slaying spell." The surging silt transformed into monstrous turbid waves that surged upwards. Hong long 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 long. At the same time, the Lonely Mountain standing on the sand, accompanied by continuous roars, was constantly sinking into the ground. The black and yellow mud and quicksand all over the sky actually flew up into the air, forming a huge loop in midair, flowing endlessly, enveloping the Lonely Mountain that was gradually sinking into the ground, leaving only a small hilltop. The long river of time surged without end. It was unstoppable and irreversible. Kong Nanhua's eternal river quicksand formation revealed such an unwavering concept of power. The huge black sword descended from the dark clouds and slashed heavily on the dark yellow Ganges. It was blocked by the mud and sand, unable to move forward. The flowing silt collided with the huge black sword, continuously wearing down the infuriating aura and mana contained within. The attack was blocked. In front of the divine martial immortal slaying spell, Evil's face revealed a smile. Passive defense will never win. You have lost this battle. He shouted loudly, and the divine martial immortal slaying spell's vigor rose by another level. The mana of 3,000 cultivators gathered together, forming a huge black smoke pillar that could be seen clearly by the naked eye. It rose up to the 9 heavens and continuously poured into the dark clouds. The huge black sword that extended from the dark clouds had a more profound and condensed power. The monstrous murderous intention seemed to be much fainter, but it was even more terrifying. This was because the murderous intention was deeper and more reserved. Once it exploded, it would definitely be more violent and brutal. Kong Nanhua, who was in charge of the Eternal River Quicksand spell, was the first to notice the change. The huge black sword's downward momentum was initially withstood, but at this moment, its power suddenly increased. It actually had the tendency of breaking through the Eternal River Quicksand spell. Although the speed was extremely slow, so slow that it was almost undetectable, the huge black sword suddenly started to descend again. Inch by inch, step by step, it seemed to be staggering and difficult to move, but it was actually somewhat unstoppable. No matter how much Kong Nanhua activated the Eternal River Quicksand spell, he could not stop the huge black sword's downward momentum. Kong Nanhua's face was extremely solemn. Although the Eternal River Quicksand spell was continuously washing against the huge black sword, trying to wear down its power, the speed was so slow that it was almost negligible. Compared to the current situation, it was completely inadequate. Although Lin Feng, who was in the belly of the mountain, could not see what was happening outside, he knew that the situation was not good when he saw Kong Nanhua's expression. The Eternal River Quicksand spell borrowed the power of heaven and earth in the great swamp of the ancient region. Logically speaking, it should be invincible. However, firstly, the spell that Kong Nanhua had learned was not complete. Secondly, the divine martial immortal slaying spell was too overbearing. 3,000 cultivators worked together and poured all their mana into Evil's body. Evil's heaven-defying absolute sword's attack power was extremely strong, and it actually had the tendency to break through the Eternal River Quicksand spell. There was always a limit to one's strength. It was not as endless as the power of heaven and earth. If this dragged on, Kong Nanhua would definitely win. However, 3,000 people exerted all their power at the same time. They might be able to break through the Eternal River Quicksand spell before they were exhausted. Lin Feng now understood why Kong Nanhua said that the crux of the problem was to see who would be the first to give up. If the Eternal River Quicksand spell couldn't hold on first and was broken, then everything would be over. If the Eternal River Quicksand spell could hold on, it would first exhaust the 3,000 cultivators of the Shenwu army outside. Then, they would be fish on the chopping board, ready to be slaughtered by the Eternal River Quicksand spell. Lin Feng frowned and thought, but looking at the current situation, it is clear that Kong Nanhua will give up first. What should I do? Lin Feng's mind was racing. The murderous intent of the huge black sword could no longer be suppressed. Endless sword energy burst out like an invincible astral wind, cutting the mountain that was still exposed on the ground. The hard mountain rocks were as fragile as tofu in front of the sword energy. They were cut into cracks. Inside the mountain, the earth shook and rocks kept falling. There were huge rocks that directly crushed the houses in the village into ruins. Kong Nanhua's face, which had already regained its ruddy luster, turned pale again. Host's disciple Zhu Yi has obtained the Lightning Origin Talisman. Host has completed the random side mission of the Wind Lightning Talisman. Reward, 1 lottery ticket. Lin Feng was dazed for a moment before coming back to his senses. He thought, stinky brats, good job. However, the reward for completing this side mission wasn't a fixed number of exchange points but a lottery ticket. Turbid wave art, turbid wave art? Lin Feng silently recited a Dao art he lacked and entered the lottery system. Roulette system? No. Dice system? Still no. Lin Feng's breath was stuck in his chest, almost cursing out loud. The attacks of the divine martial immortal execution array became more and more violent. Lin Feng, who was in the deepest part of the mountain, could also feel the violent tremors. The eternal river quicksand array was about to collapse. Kong Nanhua pursed his lips stubbornly and didn't say a word. He only supported the array with all his strength. A look of despair flashed across the eyes of Yu Hongyan and the others. It was replaced by unyielding determination. Lin Feng's palms were already sweating. He thought quickly, what should I do now? What should I do? Wait. Suddenly raising his head, Lin Feng stared at Kong Nanhua. I can't be wrong. This Kong Noah's Dao art, quicksand hidden treasure, should also meet the criteria of Zhe, right? Normally, it would be very difficult to obtain the Dao art of a cultivator in the golden elixir period. However, the dangerous situation had created an opportunity for Lin Feng. Crisis. Danger and opportunity always coexisted. Lin Feng took a deep breath and adjusted his appearance. Then he asked calmly, Taoist Kong, the Dao art you cultivate doesn't seem to be complete? Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Lin Feng's sudden interruption made everyone feel awkward. With Yu Hongyan as the leader, they all stared at Lin Feng angrily. The more dangerous the situation was, the calmer Lin Feng was. He still looked calm and composed. He didn't look at Yu Hongyan and the others who were glaring at him. He just stared at Kong Nanhua. Kong Nanhua nodded as she maintained the formation. Lin Feng said, I vaguely saw the complete version of your quicksand hidden treasure somewhere. However, I'm not sure. I wonder if you can lend me your Dao art so that I can compare it? Chapter 97. I wonder if fellow Taoist can let me have a look at your Dao art so that I can compare it? As soon as Lin Feng said this, Kong Nanhua was instantly stunned. Some members of the Society of the Strong Gale finally couldn't help but shout, You bastard, are you here to take advantage of the situation? Yu Hongyan frowned and didn't speak. The black-clothed man said in a deep voice, If you really have seen the complete copy, wouldn't it be the same if you copied it out and gave it to Mr. Kong? Lin Feng ignored them, only calmly looking at Kong Nanhua. Kong Nanhua very seriously observed him for a while. After a while he nodded his head and didn't say anything. A jade slip flew out from his sleeve, directly landing in front of Lin Feng. After handing the jade slip to Lin Feng, Kong Nanhua placed all of his attention on the eternal river quicksand formation, trying his best to resist the pressure of the divine martial immortal punishment formation. Lin Feng grabbed the jade slip, his divine sense entering it. Instantly a large section of Dao technique incantation flowed into his mind. It is the quicksand Dao technique that Kong Nanhua cultivates. Please be able to use it. Lin Feng nervously stared at the Dao technique creation system, the last remaining black hole in the 8 trigrams image, his mind recalling the quicksand's secret technique. It seemed to only be an instant, but Lin Feng felt like he had waited for millions of years. The next moment, white light lit up. In the dark void, 8 balls of white light floated in the air, according to the 8 trigrams, silently flashing. Star Net Technique, Ksitigarbha Sutra, Heavenly Wind Scripture, 9 Heavens Thunder Technique, Yellow Springs Nirvana Technique, Art of Akala, Book of Taiyue, Quicksand Secret Technique, Heaven, Earth, Wind, Lightning, Water, Fire, Mountain, Lake. The 8 types of Dao techniques have finally all been gathered. Lin Feng breathed a sigh of relief as if he was about to collapse. Right now the system notification sound falling into his ears was like listening to celestial music. The types and number of basic reference Dao techniques have met the requirements. Beginning fusion now. Dao fusion beginning. Dao fusion successful. Beginning creation of the first chapter of the Heavenly Dao Scripture. 8 Trigrams Chapter. The first chapter of the Heavenly Dao Virtue Scripture, the 8 Trigrams Universal Great Dao Scripture, has been successfully created. The magic power within Lin Feng's body had undergone an earth-shattering change. The many Dao techniques that he had cultivated previously had all disappeared at this moment. All of his magic power had been transformed into a completely new state. Lin Feng's spirit entered a mysterious and wonderful state. There was no light in front of him, only darkness and chaos. Suddenly, there was a voice that seemed to be infinitely far away, coming from an indescribable space and time. It seemed to have passed through infinite space and time, but it also seemed to be right next to Lin Feng's ears, echoing from the depths of his soul. The sound did not seem to be loud, requiring Lin Feng to concentrate all of his attention to be able to hear it, but it also seemed to be so loud that it was deafening, filling the entire space and shaking Lin Feng's soul to the point where it became unsettled. As the voice rang out, a light source gradually appeared. In the vast and boundless darkness, it seemed incomparably small, but it was incomparably clear, constantly spreading in all directions. The light wasn't dazzling, nor was it hot. It was just the purest and most original light. It gradually dispersed the darkness and chaos, prompting them to evolve continuously. The light seemed extremely small, but Lin Feng felt that the light was far bigger than he had imagined. It was so big that he couldn't describe it, because its size had surpassed anything that Lin Feng knew of by tens of millions, trillions of times. The light suddenly collapsed and turned into countless streams of light. In an instant, it filled the entire space of darkness and chaos. The tens of thousands of streams of light turned into countless scenes. Stars, lightning, flames, oceans, rivers, storms, rain, snow, lava, earth, deserts, trees, flowers, plants, metals, stones. There was no end to it. Everything that Lin Feng knew, everything that he didn't know was there. It was too much for his eyes to take in, and he was dazzled. The primordial chaos transformed into the universe. Then, billions of stars were born and destroyed. Everything in the universe was formed. Countless lives were born and then disappeared. The sea turned into mulberry fields. Everything in the universe was constantly changing. Creation, aging, decay, and then death. Lin Feng was silent for a moment. A gentle smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He mumbled to himself, the 8 trigram scripture of the great Tao of heaven. This is the true meaning of creation. He was trying to figure out a new Tao technique. He didn't notice that Yu Hongyan and the rest were all staring at him. Lin Feng's attention was now completely focused on the system. Congratulations to the host for successfully creating the Sex Foundation Tao technique. Congratulations to the host for completing the second main mission. Special reward for the main mission released. Lin Feng immediately opened the special reward for the main mission. The reason why he worked so hard was to complete the main mission. He was aiming for this special reward. The reward for the first main mission, the Battle Array Magic Puppet, is already so powerful. Your second mission won't be too shabby, right? The special reward this time was a diagram of an array. Yin and Yang life and death array. It describes the beginning of chaos, the creation of Yin and Yang, the creation of all things, and the great Tao of heaven and earth. There are a total of 6 changes. Lin Feng carefully studied the diagram of the array and gradually came up with an idea. One of these 6 changes seems to be able to deal with the divine martial immortal slaying array. Seeing that Lin Feng was daydreaming, Yu Hongyan's almond-shaped eyes widened. She couldn't help but lose her temper. But the mountain suddenly shook violently. Outside Lonely Mountain, the black giant sword pierced down from the clouds in the sky. At this time, the tip of the sword was about to fall on the top of Lonely Mountain. The massive quicksand and silt manifested by the eternal river quicksand array surrounded the black giant sword, almost wrapping it into a big mud ball. But it still couldn't stop the black giant sword's downward momentum. The giant sword, which was almost the same size as the top of Lonely Mountain, pressed down with a terrifying power. It was like a natural disaster. Kong Nanhua sat cross-legged on the sand dune. His face was pale, and his white clothes had been soaked in sweat. His hands continuously changed signs, and then he suddenly spat out a mouthful of essence blood filled with true essence. Kong Nanhua's essence blood sprayed onto the golden sand. The entire eternal river quicksand array instantly perked up, barely blocking the falling sword edge. But Kong Nanhua himself was clearly heavily injured. His expression appeared more and more tired. What's worse is that this method is undoubtedly quenching thirst with poison. It can't last for too long. Yu Hongyan glared fiercely at Lin Feng, then turned around and walked outside. The black-clothed man called out, "Hongyan?" Yu Hongyan said in a muffled voice, "Go get ready. Even if the eternal river quicksand array is broken, we have to kill a few more of those Zhou dogs no matter what." Lin Feng was also shocked back to his senses by the power of the divine martial immortal slaying array outside. Looking at Yu Hongyan's flame-like back, he smiled and shook his head. "Your courage is commendable." Yu Hongyan, who had already walked to the edge of the hole, turned around and glared at him. The other members of the Society of the Strong Gale also looked at Lin Feng with vigilance. "Don't be rude." Kang Nanhua, who has been bitterly supporting the Eternal River Quicksand Array all this time and hasn't spoken since the beginning, suddenly spoke. Yu Hongyan hurriedly said, "Mr. Kang he?" Kang Nanhua raised his hand to stop her, then looked at Lin Feng, slowly saying, "I'm useless. I can't defeat the opponent's divine martial immortal slaying array. The general leading the Zhou army this time is that Butcher Xie. Wherever he goes he never leaves anyone alive. If he attacks in, not to mention the cultivators in the mountain, even the civilians will be slaughtered." Kang Nanhua's tone was heavy. "I'm not afraid of death, but I can't keep the promise I made to Hong Feng back then." Hearing this, the eyes of Yu Hongyan, who has always been strong, turned slightly red. "Mr. Kang, if it wasn't for you, everyone here would have already died under the butcher knife of that Zhou dog many years ago. We are the ones who have dragged you down. If Big Brother knows in the underworld, he definitely won't blame you. He will only blame himself for harming you." Kang Nanhua waved his hand and stared straight at Lin Feng. "I see that you are as calm as ever, as if you don't care about the 3,000 Zhou army outside and their divine martial immortal slaying array? If you have great magical powers, please save the people here. Kang Nanhua will be eternally grateful." With that, the weak-looking young man in white slowly prostrated on the sand dune. Yu Hongyan and the rest were all shocked, staring blankly at Kang Nanhua and Lin Feng. Lin Feng's expression was calm as he looked at him silently. "You trust me?" Kang Nanhua said word by word, "I trust you." Lin Feng let out a sigh. "I'll help you with this. For those who trust me, I will never disappoint them." With that, Lin Feng waved his hand casually. A map flashing with a mysterious light passed through the belly of the mountain and flew out of Lonely Mountain. Chapter 98. Outside Lonely Mountain, Evil calmly operated the divine martial immortal extermination formation. However, his calm expression revealed a sense of coldness and bloodthirstiness. In the distance, the huge black sword tip rushed straight down and reached the peak of Lonely Mountain. Violent killing intent and death aura filled the surroundings. The entire vicinity of Lonely Mountain seemed to be shrouded by a black aura. Ordinary creatures, once touched by this black aura, would immediately be robbed of their lives and die. Even the Shenwu army cultivators behind evil showed fear in the face of such a strong death energy. Suddenly, a small light spot flew out from the belly of Lonely Mountain and landed in the air above the peak. Evil's eyes focused. Before he could react, the light spot rapidly expanded. Countless rays of light intertwined in the sky with a strange pattern. It was a mysterious formation with an extremely large area. Not only did it exceed the range of Lonely Mountain, but it also enveloped the nearby sandy land and expanded to a large swamp. The 3,000 cultivators of the Shenwu army couldn't help but look up. Above their heads, the huge formation enveloped an area of 100 miles. The formation flashed and slowly, it fell to the ground as if it had sunk into the ground and disappeared in a flash. A cultivator touched his body. The rays of light that formed the formation just passed through his body and fell to the ground under his feet. But he didn't feel anything. If it weren't for the 3,000 people witnessing it, they would have thought it was an illusion. The formation was like a fleeting glimpse, appearing in a hurry and then disappearing in a hurry, as if it had never existed. Evil sneered in front of the divine martial immortal extermination formation. "You only know how to play these little tricks? Then go to hell." The army has locked the nearby space. Whether it's the remnants of Xue Feng or the young Taoist from before, they can't run out of the range of this mountain. All of you must die. Evil drew his sword and his magic power increased again. The rocks on the peak of Lonely Mountain had been cut into countless cracks by the sharp sword energy. At this moment, the tip of the black sword instantly shattered. The entire peak was on the verge of collapse. Countless sand surrounded the black sword energy, still trying to wear down the power of the giant sword and slow down its falling momentum. But no matter how one looked at it, it seemed so powerless and extremely futile. In the belly of Lonely Mountain, Yu Hongyan and the others all looked at Lin Feng with incomparable disappointment. Some people could not bear the huge pressure and roared at Lin Feng, "Little tricks like camouflage, is this all you've got?" The man in black stopped him, glanced at Kong Nanhua, and then looked at Lin Feng. "Mr. Kong has really misjudged you. Since you don't have the ability, why bother putting on airs?" Yu Hongyan waved his hand in frustration. "It's useless to talk about that now. Let's go. How can we just sit here and wait for death?" Lin Feng turned a deaf ear to this. Instead, he closed his eyes leisurely and calculated with his fingers. He is waiting. Outside the Lone Mountain, Evil was also waiting. He was waiting for the moment when his sword momentum reached its peak. The magic power of the 3,000 Shenwu army cultivators was also pushed to the extreme. Such a huge amount of magic power gathered together, and under Evil's guidance, it continuously fused into the dark clouds in the sky, where it was turned into a murderous sword energy. "Go against the heavens and destroy all living beings." Evil's eyes brightened. He flew into the sky and flew straight into the dark clouds where the sword energy came from, disappearing. But as Evil himself entered the dark clouds, the murderous intent of the black sword energy rose to another level. Countless cracks appeared on the black sword energy, densely packed like a spider web. The cracks were as red as blood, and the murderous intent was earth-shattering. The sword energy didn't seem to be collapsing after these cracks appeared. Instead, it became fiercer and more condensed. Evil's murderous voice came from the clouds, "Now." Before he could finish speaking, the pitch-black energy sword that was covered in blood suddenly shone with a red light. In the next moment, the sand surrounding the sword energy shattered. The eternal river quicksand formation was broken. The peak of Lonely Mountain collapsed. The upper half of the mountain turned into countless gravel and tumbled down. Inside the mountain, it was as if the sky was falling and the mountains were shaking. The apocalypse was coming. Yu Hongyan and the others turned pale with fright, or their faces turned ashen. At this moment, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly opened. The murderous intent of the enemy had reached its peak. This was the moment. Lin Feng placed his hands in front of his chest and changed his hands' seals continuously. One command after another was sent to the well-prepared Yin and Yang life and death formation. Yin and Yang life and death formation, activate. 6 Tao of life and death, change of life and death, activate. The giant array that had disappeared suddenly lit up at this moment. Endless rays of light shot into the sky, illuminating everyone's shocked faces. If one looked down from a very high place in the sky, one could see a giant magic circle lit up on the ground with Lonely Mountain as the center. Countless lines of light outlined mysterious patterns one after another. These patterns gathered together to form a giant black and white pattern that covered 100 miles around Lonely Mountain. The giant formation slowly rose up and blocked the falling black blood greatsword in midair. Something strange happened. In the giant formation, the black and white poles slowly rotated and devoured the black sword that fell on it. The murderous sword energy that could split the sky and the earth disappeared as soon as it fell into the black and white poles. There was no earth-shattering collision. Evil's heaven-defying sword attack using the divine martial immortal slaying formation formed by 3,000 cultivators disappeared silently in the giant formation. "What is that?" Someone in the Shenwu army formation exclaimed and pointed to the ground in front of them. The others ignored him. It wasn't that they didn't hear him, but that everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. Within the range of the giant spell formation's radiance, the ground that was originally sand and swamp was actually covered by a patch of green. Countless fresh green grasses and beautiful flowers sprouted from the mud and sand, turning this place into a sea of flowers and plants. Exuberant vitality, exuberant greenery, The strong aura of life formed a sharp contrast with the murderous aura of death that was still surging in the sky. It was as if they were two completely opposite worlds. The world of life and death. And the dividing line between the two worlds was the giant formation in the sky. This formation continuously transformed the murderous aura of death released by evil into aura of life. The stronger the opponent's aura of death, the more powerful the formation will be. Lonely Mountain had already completely split open. The people in the belly of the mountain stared blankly at the scene in the sky. Countless people knelt on the ground, thanking the gods for their protection. Yu Hongyan and the others looked at Lin Feng in shock, all speechless. Lin Feng's voice came from the giant formation. His tone was calm, clearly passing into the ears of everyone present. Whether it's the Shenwu army or the Society of the Strong Gale, they could all clearly hear his voice. I originally didn't want to kill too much in the matters between the two of you. For the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale, the people in the mountain are your family, but the 3,000 Shenwu army outside the mountain also have family? But, evil, you're extremely vicious and ruthless. You don't leave any leeway, you're forcing me to make a move. The dark clouds in the sky were already about to disperse, revealing evil's incomparably gloomy face. His cold face revealed a manic and bloodthirsty expression for the first time. Deceiving brat, before I killed you until you pissed your pants in terror, now you still dare to show your face? I'll tear you to pieces, let's see if you still dare to be arrogant. Evil let out a shrill howl, his sword force once again strengthened. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't do anything to the formation of life and death. On the contrary, the more he exerted force, the stronger the formation's power became. The destructive power of the heaven-defying absolute sword was endlessly converted into life force. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Since you're seeking death, I'll fulfill your wish. The spell sign of his hands changed again. 6 paths of life and death, change of heaven and earth, begin. The life force within the formation all merged into the formation. The formation shone brightly, an enormous power capable of toppling the heavens and earth erupted. The 3,000 Shenwu army cultivators within the formation felt the entire space in front of them turn upside down. The sky was collapsing non-stop. The sky was falling straight down towards their heads. The ground under their feet was constantly shaking, sand and sand rolled up, covering the sky and covering the sun, wanting to completely bury them. The apocalypse-like change of heaven and earth made the entire Shenwu immortal punishment formation collapse in an instant. The 3,000 cultivators all covered their heads and scurried away like rats, but how could they escape the attack of the formation's power? The sky that used to be lofty and distant is overturning. The earth that used to bear everything is roaring. The sky is overturning, no one can stop it. 3,000 people, 3,000 cultivators, all buried in the vast swamp. Evil's eyes were blood red as he roared. The mana he gathered earlier had yet to dissipate, converging into an extremely violent and bloody red light on the tip of his sword, pointing straight at the center of the yin-yang life and death formation. As if the Milky Way was pouring down, a dark blood-red sword ray shot out. Lin Feng took a step forward, his body already merged into the yin-yang life and death formation, and a cold voice came from the formation. Those who kill will always be killed. 6 paths of life and death, change of life and death, turn. The black and white poles of the formation reversed, and the massive amount of life force was turned into a monstrous deathly aura, dyeing the entire sky black. The mountain-like tip of the black sword appeared again, but this time, it poked its head out of Lin Feng's yin-yang life and death formation. Evil's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as he watched the black sword whizzing towards him. The red sword ray clashed with the black sword in midair. There was only one ending for it. The sky was filled with red light, illuminating Evil's despairing face. The black sword pierced towards Evil in the sky. The huge tip of the sword was many times bigger than Evil's body, but it accurately stabbed into Evil's body. All the power, without a single bit of waste, exploded on Evil's body. Endless black light exploded in the sky, exploding and exploding again. General Evil, who was bloodthirsty and cruel, who loved to listen to the people he killed praise him before they died. There was only one ending for him: death. Chapter 99. The black greatsword the size of a small mountain charged straight towards the horizon, as if it wants to split the sky. The moment Evil's body came into contact with the blade, it shattered into dust. Countless rays of black light exploded in the sky, scattering in all directions like a meteor shower. All of the cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale raised their heads and stared blankly at the sky above their heads. There, the great sword tore apart the thick clouds in the sky. A touch of warm sunlight shone down, falling on everyone's body. God knows how many days and months it's been since they've seen sunlight in this miasma-filled swamp of the ancient region. The children let out waves of cheers, but the adults felt their noses tingle, having the urge to cry. Yu Hongyan and the others also looked at the sky above their heads in shock. It's over just like this? Just a moment ago, the eternal river quicksand formation collapsed, the summit of Lonely Mountain collapsed, the people in the belly of the mountain were all exposed to the butcher knife of the enemy, and it looked like they were about to be slaughtered. But at this moment, 3,000 cultivators, the divine martial immortal slaying formation, General Evil, were destroyed just like this? Yu Hongyan was terrified, looking at Lin Feng, who put away the formation map and descended from the sky. The red-haired girl stood there blankly, falling into a state of absent-mindedness. Those two red eyebrows that are forever raised like thin killing swords also seemed a lot calmer because of her absent-mindedness. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent, his white clothes untainted by even a speck of dust. The cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale looked at each other with an awkward expression, looking at Lin Feng speechlessly. Yu Hongyan came back to her senses. Her expression was also extremely complicated. But she didn't hesitate much, directly bowing all the way towards Lin Feng, making a proper bow. Senior has remarkable abilities, turning the tide. Yu Hongyan will never forget the favor of lending a helping hand. Before I was rude to Senior, I'm willing to let Senior punish me. The black-clothed man also had an ashamed expression, cupping his hands towards Lin Feng, saying sincerely, I was rude before, I hope Senior can forgive me. The face of the cultivator of the Society of the Strong Gale who first criticized Lin Feng was flushed red. It was me who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and offended Senior. I hope you can forgive me. The members of the Society of the Strong Gale all came up to salute Lin Feng, either apologizing or thanking him. Lin Feng only smiled faintly and did not say anything. It was as if he didn't care about their previous questioning and offense, or their current apologies and thanks. If it was before, in the eyes of Yu Hongyan and the others, they would naturally feel that Lin Feng was arrogant. I'm afraid it can really open up a place and control the creation and destruction of all things, right? Thinking up to here, Lin Feng couldn't help but be fascinated. The main quests issued by the system are indeed a scam, but the special rewards of the main quests are really more awesome than the previous one. It can be said to be high risk and high reward. For the first time in history, Lin Feng was even somewhat looking forward to the new main quest. After entering the system, the new main quest has indeed been issued. Main Quest 1. To find a suitable blessed land and grotto heaven and officially establish the sect. Quest description: the path of cultivation, law, land, wealth, and companions. If a sect wants to develop and strengthen, other than the Tao techniques belonging to the sect, it also needs a blessed land and grotto heaven that is suitable for cultivation. Only then can it attract the talents of the world to join and establish a foundation for generations to come. Quest time limit: 3 years. If the quest is not completed within the time limit, the host will be directly killed. Lin Feng looked at the quest content and pondered, should I officially find a place to settle down? He thought of the deal he made with that witch, Long Yi, before. Long Yi provided him with information about a cave abode, saying that it hasn't been occupied yet. Who knows if it's true? While Lin Feng was pondering, he saw Kong Nanhua walk down from the sand dune, arriving in front of him. Kong Nanhua's expression was calm, arriving in front of Lin Feng and bowing. Thank you for lending a helping hand. Kong Nanhua can't thank you enough. Lin Feng said with a slight smile, the strong are helped by the heavens, you don't need to take it to heart. Besides, I didn't make a move to take advantage of someone's precarious situation and demand repayment. Kang Nanhua shook his head and didn't say anything. He promised his old friend that even if he had to fight to the death, he definitely wouldn't shrink back. So if it wasn't for Lin Feng making a move today, not to mention the people of the Society of the Strong Gale, even Kang Nanhua himself would have fallen under the divine martial immortal punishing formation. Kang Nanhua looked at the people of the Society of the Strong Gale, sighing. I once promised Hong Feng to take care of you guys, but my mana isn't high enough and it's hard to protect you guys. This time if it wasn't for this fellow Taoist saving me, even my own life would have been lost. Yu Hongyan walked out of the crowd, walking to Kang Nanhua's side, lowering his head and saying, Thank you for your care these years. Hongyan thanks Mr. Kang on behalf of everyone. You're not a member of our Society of the Strong Gale to begin with. Just for a promise from Big Brother you've protected us until now, all of us are deeply grateful. Yu Hongyan said with deep emotion, It's us who were too selfish, relying on your protection we wantonly operated within the borders of the great Zhou dynasty. Kang Nanhua's expression was calm as he shook his head, not saying anything. Lin Feng secretly nodded after hearing this. Yu Hongyan and the others were indeed a bit too arrogant. With their strength, it was too high profile for them to insist on operating within the borders of the great Zhou dynasty. In the end, the great Zhou dynasty was serious this time and almost wiped them all out. If they retreated into the borders of other dynasties, how could the great Zhou dynasty encircle and annihilate them so easily? The black-clothed man's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Hong Yen, don't tell me Yu Hongyan calmly nodded his head. I've decided, we'll temporarily withdraw from the borders of the great Zhou dynasty, accumulate strength, increase our cultivation level. In the future when we have enough strength we'll make a comeback. The black-clothed man glanced at Kang Nanhua, opening his mouth wanting to say something, but in the end he didn't make a sound. Kang Nanhua slightly frowned. Entering the borders of other dynasties it's very easy for you to lose your independence. Yu Hongyan faintly smiled, his two crimson eyebrows raised up. That will depend on whether or not we work hard. There are no cowards in the people of Snow Gale. Hearing this, Kang Nanhua's face revealed a smile of approval. Hong Yen, you're very good. If the Red Wind Spring knows of your appearance today, he'll definitely be very happy. He turned his head to look at Lin Feng, saying very seriously, Your grace today is equivalent to giving me a new lease on life. It's just a pity that I'm already carrying a promise. Before I've fulfilled the previous promise, I really don't dare to make another promise lightly. I can only say that when we meet again in the future, as long as you have an order, Kang Nanhua won't dare to disobey. Lin Feng stared at Kang Nanhua's eyes for a moment, lightly laughing. Don't mention following or dispatching again. I'll still say the same thing. If we're fated to meet again in the future, I'm willing to sit down and debate with you. Lin Feng turned his head to look at Yu Hongyan and the others, smiling, saying, You guys take care of yourselves. The cultivators of the Society of the Strong Gale with Yu Hongyan in the lead bowed together, respectfully saying, We will follow senior's teachings. Lin Feng waved the black cloud flag, turning into a streak of black light and instantly disappearing into the distance. After Lin Feng left, Kang Nanhua began to meditate and adjust his breathing. Yu Hongyan and the others went out to calm the villagers and began to arrange for the evacuation. The black-clothed man silently walked to a place where no one was paying attention and crushed a sound transmission crystal. What happened? The crystal shard emitted white light. A man's voice came from within the white light. Chapter 100. What happened? The crystal shard emitted a white light and a man's voice came from the white light. The black-robed man reported everything that happened before. After a moment of silence, the other said, This time is indeed very dangerous. It is good that you leave the great Zhou country first. After a pause, he said, The sect will soon send disciples to your place to increase your strength. At the same time, it will also be a training for the disciples. The scar on the black-robed man's face trembled, and he sighed in his heart. This way, the enemy's infiltration of them would be even more powerful. However, he had no room to refuse and could only respectfully reply, We will be prepared on our side. After the other seemingly casually asked, Is there any news of Zhu Yi who I ordered you to capture last time? The black-robed man answered, I only heard that he appeared near the Great Qin Dynasty's Chuzhou city, but his current whereabouts cannot be confirmed. Okay, I understand. You should leave as soon as possible. The other side didn't say anything else and cut off the connection. However, the black-robed man could still faintly hear the other side seemingly talking to himself. A white-robed young Taoist with feathered clothes and a star crown? This person has been very active recently. Why haven't I heard of this person before? Although he knew that the other side couldn't see him, the black-robed man still lowered his head and didn't dare to make the slightest sound. Because that was a disciple of the number one sacred ground in the world, the Taishu Temple. To him, this was an absolute monster. Lin Feng rode on the black cloud flag and flew in the air, splitting off a strand of consciousness to enter the internal space of the black cloud flag. Looking at Dao Jiqiang, who was still in a daze, he asked, "Okay, what are your plans now?" Dao Jiqiang came back to his senses and looked at Lin Feng with an extremely complicated gaze. He softly sighed, "I can't go back to the Shenwu army. My comrades were all annihilated and I'm the only one left alive. If I go back, my fate will be extremely miserable." Lin Feng lightly glanced at him. "I let you go, what do you plan to do?" "Thank you for trusting me." Dao Jiqiang said, "I plan to go to the Great Qin Dynasty and try my luck to see if I can enter a large sect to cultivate and increase my strength." Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Dao Jiqiang calmly said, "I joined the Shenwu army because there are large amounts of cultivation resources and arts that can increase my power." His expression was resolute. "I need strength, great strength." Lin Feng waved his sleeve. "Since that's the case, I wish you good luck." Dao Jiqiang knew nothing about him, and Lin Feng wasn't worried that releasing Dao Jiqiang would expose any secrets. After exiting the black cloud flag, Dao Jiqiang bowed to Lin Feng and said, "Thank you, Dao Zhang, for not killing me." After saying that, he did not hesitate and turned to leave. Lin Feng looked at his back and shook his head with a smile. This was also a man with a story. "I have to go as soon as possible." For Lin Feng, the most important thing right now was to meet up with Xiao Yan's group as soon as possible. He headed west and left the archaic swamp. When he saw Xiao Yan's group again, it was already a month later. "Master!" The little guy jumped over as soon as they met. Lin Feng laughed and patted his head. "Stinking brat, you didn't cause trouble for your two senior brothers, did you?" Xiao Budian's big black eyes swiveled around, and said while grinning, "Of course not." Xiao Yan behind him scolded with a smile, "Don't give me that, tell Master all the good things you did." While smiling, he walked over with Zhu Yi and bowed to Lin Feng. "Disciple greets Master." Zhu Yi smiled and took out a palm-sized stone talisman. "Master, the three of us did not disappoint and successfully brought back the lightning essence talisman." Lin Feng faintly smiled and thought to himself, "Of course I know you guys completed the task." He took the lightning essence talisman and saw that it was similar to the flowing wind talisman. The material and size were the same, but the talisman carved on the stone talisman looked like a lightning symbol, which was different from the flowing wind talisman. Lin Feng smiled and looked at the little guy. The little guy chuckled and took out the flowing wind talisman and handed it to Lin Feng. These two talismans looked ordinary on their own, and the spiritual power they contained was extremely thin. However, when the two talismans combined, Lin Feng immediately felt a huge change. Wind and lightning were born and complemented each other. There was actually a mysterious power that was constantly growing and growing between the talismans at a shocking speed. This thing really can't be judged by its appearance. It looks ordinary, but it's definitely a treasure. Lin Feng thought to himself. His eyes glanced at Xiao Yan's group and he suddenly felt something strange. After taking a closer look, Lin Feng was suddenly speechless. Before they parted, the little guy's cultivation was at Qi Disciple level 10, Xiao Yan was at Qi Disciple level 9, and Zhu Yi had just reached Qi Disciple level 7. In just a short 2 to 3 months, the little guy had already broken through to Qi Disciple level 12. Xiao Yan was at the peak of Qi Disciple level 11 and could immediately break through to Qi Disciple level 12. The most terrifying was Zhu Yi. This guy had also reached Qi Disciple level 11. What kind of joke was this? Lin Feng suddenly felt a lot of pressure. Being surrounded by such a group of monsters, How could Wang Lin be the only one who felt pressure? You guys are the chosen ones. Your cultivation speed is really like taking drugs. Lin Feng secretly wiped his cold sweat and made up his mind. Damn, now that I have a self-created Dao technique, I must go into seclusion this time. I must at least cultivate to the foundation establishment stage. Looking at the 3 disciples in front of him, Lin Feng only felt a surging king's tyrannical aura multiply by 3. It was constantly leaking out. Looking at the faintly disappointed Wang Lin beside him, Lin Feng's mouth slightly twitched. Why are you disappointed? Contestants like you who exert strength in the latter stages are the scariest, aren't they? Lin Feng's gaze turned to Zhu. The other 2 were fine, but this kid's speed was a bit too fast, wasn't it? With this look, Lin Feng suddenly saw something. His face revealed an unfathomable smile. Zhu Yi, it seems like you have gained a lot from this trip. Zhu Yi nodded. I was just about to report to Master. After saying that, he took out a long metal artifact. Lin Feng looked carefully and saw that it was an artifact carved in the shape of a long snake. The snake's winding body was vivid and lifelike, and there were 2 crimson snake eyes on its head, emitting a demonic light. Zhu Yi explained, this thing is called God-destroying snake. It is an artifact. It can release golden light to attack the opponent's body, destroying the opponent's divine soul and physical body from the inside, making it impossible for the opponent to effectively defend themselves. During this trip to the Sea of Wind and Thunder, the 3 of us found the Thunder Origin Talisman. When we were about to return, we accidentally encountered a cultivator who was going through a tribulation. In the end, he failed and died, but we obtained a part of his magic power essence, causing our cultivation to improve by leaps and bounds. Apart from that, there's also this God of Destruction snake magic tool and a spell called Dark Mandala Array. As Zhu Yi spoke, he took out a jade slip and handed it to Lin Feng, a confused expression on his face. It is very strange, whether it is refining the artifact or practicing the spell, I have been very successful, but when I let eldest senior brother and little junior brother try, they were unable to grasp the main points. Lin Feng took the jade slip with a strange expression, but in fact, his heart was already racing. 10 points of fortune, it really is not an exaggeration. Lin Feng shook his head with a wry smile, but on the surface, he was calm and said, don't worry, everyone has their own fate. Zhu Yi nodded, then said hesitantly, also, the 3 of us may have gotten into some trouble. After that cultivator failed to pass the tribulation, there were people who coveted his inheritance, so we had a conflict with them. Zhu Yi paused, then continued. During the conflict, we killed 2 of them. Xiao Yan patted Tiny Tot's head. If it wasn't for this kid's dirty hands, we would have taken the things and directly run away. Tiny Tot stuck out his tongue. How would I know that the other party was hiding in such a damned place? I could actually blow them up with a random lightning bolt? Lin Feng's expression did not change, but he sighed in his heart. Sure enough, as soon as they left the novice village, there would be countless monsters crying and shouting and pouncing on these kids, begging for abuse and education. The path of monsters was to cut through thorns and thorns, it was to shine brightly, it was to trample on all the cannon fodder that came to their door to be slapped. After calming down, Lin Feng asked, do you know who the other party is? Xiao Yan nodded. They said that they are from the Wind God sect. Lin Feng's expression was slightly strange, but it disappeared in a flash. He smiled and shook his head. Don't worry about it, you guys remember, we won't take the initiative to cause trouble, but if someone dares to bully our own people, go all out and beat them up. Xiao Yan and the other 2, as well as the silent Wang Lin, heard this. Their spirits were roused. They bowed and said, we will solemnly obey Master's orders. Tiny Tot's eyes turned, and he suddenly smiled. Master, when we came back this time, we passed by a valley, there was a heavenly gold thunder snake there, it was about to shed its skin. Do you think we should kill it? Lin Feng looked at his little disciple with a smile that wasn't a smile, who looked cute but had actually already revealed some potential of being thick-skinned and black-hearted. Brat, thinking about your baptism? Tiny Tot embarrassedly scratched the back of his head and said with a flattering smile, Master, I will be 5 soon. Lin Feng smiled and patted his little head. In a few days we will go. Don't worry, Master has not forgotten your baptism. Before that, Lin Feng had to hurry up and let himself reach the foundation establishment stage. Chapter 101. It's still not working. It's not a problem of not having enough magic power. Lin Feng stopped meditating and stood up. His brows furrowed into a knot. He had been working hard for nearly a month, but he still couldn't open up his sea of qi and establish his Tao foundation. Lin Feng carefully analyzed the actual situation and found that it wasn't that his magic power wasn't strong enough. It was that he hadn't completely understood the concepts and principles contained in the 8 trigrams of the Great Way of Heaven. Even though Lin Feng created this Taoist scripture that was formed after merging the 8 Taoist techniques, the profoundness within still needed Lin Feng to carefully analyze. Feeling a little irritated, Lin Feng didn't dare to force his way through. He stopped cultivating and stood up to take a walk nearby to relax his nerves. Deep in the mountains, Lin Feng walked unhurriedly beside a small pond. He looked at his reflection in the water and silently thought about the problems he had encountered in the process of cultivating. A small insect flew up from the surface of the water. Lin Feng recognized that it was a mayfly, a small insect that only had a few days of life. Lin Feng squatted beside the pond and looked at the flying mayfly in a daze. It only has a few days of life at most. Is there any meaning to such a life? As a young man who was half ordinary and half stupid, Lin Feng rarely thought about such artistic things. However, these days, his mind was filled with the 8 trigrams of the Great Way of Heaven. He was constantly thinking about the principles of creation and death of all things revealed in it. After a long time, Lin Feng's mind suddenly had a layer of understanding. A human can live for 100 years, a mayfly can live for a few days. They all grow old and die. In the end, they all have to die. There's no difference. A human's life has meaning, so does a mayfly. It's just that humans don't necessarily understand mayflies. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the sky above him. He slowly turned his neck and looked at the surrounding mountains and plants. He looked at the pond in front of him. Finally, his gaze fell on the short-lived little insect. For 3 whole days, Lin Feng sat motionlessly beside the pond, observing the mayfly's birth, growth, and eventual aging and death. He observed the process of a life being born, aging, getting sick, and dying. After another mayfly died, Lin Feng stood up with a whoosh, closing his eyes. Mayflies, humans, all living things in this world, even this entire world, they all have to go through this process of creation, aging, collapse, and finally perish, returning to nothingness. After destruction, everything returns to nothingness, and then is created once again from the chaos of nothingness. When the heavens and the earth are first created, the primordial world appears, and then all living things are born. As time passes, they grow and age, and finally decay until they are completely destroyed and no longer exist. Birth, aging, sickness, and death. This is life. Lin Feng slowly opened his eyes. Countless fragmented images flashed through his pupils. Countless scenes. Heavenly winds, earthly fires, pavilions, the sun and moon, mountains and rivers, peddlers, dragons, elephants, tigers, and leopards. Thousands of things were constantly being born and destroyed. Success, destruction, and emptiness. This is fate. Lin Feng's mind was like a spring breeze, and he was at peace. He wholeheartedly felt the changes in his body and the communication between heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, it was as if thousands of years had passed. Lin Feng's eyes suddenly widened, and an endless divine light burst out. Boom! Between heaven and earth, a majestic will connected the heavens and the earth, and carried the qi of heaven and earth. Lin Feng felt the magic power in his body tremble, and he was reborn. It was an earth-shattering change. For cultivators who had not broken through the 12th floor, their magic power would accumulate in their acupoints like stagnant water. For cultivators who had broken through the 12th floor, their magic power would flow like a river. For cultivators who had established their Tao foundation, their magic power would carry the weight of heaven and earth, and it would be as vast as the ocean. At this moment, Lin Feng not only understood the true meaning of the 8 trigram scripture of the Great Tao, but also touched upon the concept of the beginning of chaos and the operation of the heavenly Tao. Foundation establishment stage. Done. Congratulations to host for reaching the foundation establishment stage. Congratulations to host for comprehending the true meaning of the first chapter of the 8 trigram scripture of the Great Tao. Conditions met. System upgrading, entering the second stage. When Lin Feng heard a series of notifications, he couldn't help but smile. I hope this upgrade is good enough. System upgrade complete. Lin Feng first opened the exchange system, and when he saw the items inside, his eyes widened. Good heavens, there are pills that can directly increase cultivation? 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill, a unique item of the system. It did not exist in the Great Heaven Primordial World. If cultivators below the primordial spirit stage consume it, they will directly increase by a small stage, and the chances of breaking through to the next stage will increase. A person can only consume it once in their lifetime, and it will be ineffective the second time. Lin Feng's saliva flowed out of his mouth, but when he looked at the exchange price, he was instantly defeated. Fuck, all his wealth added up was not even a fraction of it. However, Lin Feng wasn't discouraged. According to his experience, there was a certain chance of obtaining something from the exchange system. Other than the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill, there was also the Demon Breaking Pill that could suppress inner demons, the Crazy Demon Pill that could greatly increase one's strength for a short period of time, and the Shadow Clone Pill that could create a clone with half of one's cultivation. There were all sorts of good items, and Lin Feng couldn't take it all in. Although he didn't have enough points to exchange, when Xiao Yan and the others completed the Wind and Thunder Talisman side mission, the system had rewarded Lin Feng with a chance at the lottery. Lin Feng immediately entered the lottery system, and when he saw the scene in front of him, he couldn't help but be stunned. The lottery system originally had 3 images. One was a die, which represented the dice lottery system, and the other was a roulette, which represented the roulette lottery system. Other than that, there was another item that was blocked by a gray fog, and he couldn't choose it. The system probably hadn't been opened yet. But after the system upgrade, the fog had dissipated. Lin Feng looked carefully, and it was a lot pot. He clicked to enter. This was a lottery system. After reading the rules carefully, Lin Feng gritted his teeth. The lottery system had a total of 4 types of lots for drawing: red lot, white lot, long lot, and short lot. Before drawing lots, he could first choose an item he wanted from the exchange system, then choose an item from his current items and give it to the system as a bargaining chip. Finally, he would draw lots. If he drew the red lot, it was a special prize, and he could directly get the item he wanted from the exchange system. It was equivalent to using his bargaining chip to exchange for the item, even if the original price of the item was tens of thousands of points. If he drew the white lot, he wouldn't get anything, and the item he provided to the system as a bargaining chip would be returned as it was, which was equivalent to wasting a lottery chance. If he drew the long lot, it was a random prize, and the bargaining chip item wouldn't be returned. He would randomly draw an item and give it to Lin Feng, but there was no guarantee whether the item was good or bad. The worst was the short lot. Not only would he not get anything, but the bargaining chip item wouldn't be returned either, and he would suffer a double loss. 30 lots would appear in the lot pot at once. Before drawing, all the lots would look the same. Only after drawing would he know whether it was a red lot, a white lot, a long lot, or a short lot. According to the system's explanation, the more expensive the bargaining chip was, the higher the probability of a red lot and a long lot. There could be a maximum of 6 red lots, a 20% chance. On the other hand, the cheaper the bargaining chip, the higher the probability of a white lot and a short lot, and the lower the probability of a red lot. The lowest was only 1, a little over 3% chance. In addition, any item that came from the system couldn't be used as a bargaining chip. Lin Feng's mind immediately became active. If it's not from the system, what can I use as a bargaining chip? Black Cloud Flag? No, I'll have to rely on this thing to travel. The ability to teleport is also very useful. Wind Thunder Talisman? Although the Flowing Wind Talisman came from the system, the Thunder Origin Talisman wasn't. However, this thing was still very useful, and could even lay the foundation of the sect. He was a little reluctant to use it. Universe mirror? This thing could be used as a radar, and intelligence gathering was very important, but it wasn't suitable. Lin Feng thought for a moment, and his eyes lit up. This thing should have some weight, right? Chapter 102. This thing should be of some value, right? As Lin Feng pondered, he took out a small mountain the size of a fist. It was the Dharma artifact he had obtained after killing giant spirit Sex Elder Yu. This small black mountain had been damaged by the war god demon puppet back then. After Lin Feng obtained it, he hadn't had the time to repair it. He had only obtained the Taiyue scripture Dharma needed to fuse with the 8 trigrams universal Great Tao Canon. Lin Feng grabbed the small mountain and pondered. Although it's damaged, it's still a golden elixir period Dharma artifact. It should be of some value, right? He activated the lottery system and entered the exchange page to choose what he fancied. Lin Feng didn't choose the 33 days fortune immortal pill that could increase his cultivation. Even if he obtained the pill, Lin Feng wouldn't consume it now. It was effective for anyone below the primordial soul realm. That way, it would definitely be most valuable for those at the Yuanying realm. Even if he really obtained it now, he wouldn't be able to increase his strength immediately. It would be equivalent to wasting a chance at the lottery. Lin Feng had his eyes on one of the few golden elixir period Dharma artifacts in the system. It was a Dharma sword called the Pure Yang sword. This Pure Yang sword was refined from one of the 7 true fires, the Pure Yang true fire. The Pure Yang true fire was milky white in color. It was the ancestor of all flames. It was the source and ancestor of the entire heaven primordial world's flames. It was the purest flame and could fuse with many other flames. It was the bane of all evil. More importantly, with this Pure Yang sword, Lin Feng might have a chance to figure out the mysteries of the Pure Yang true fire. This Dharma sword's price in the exchange system was on the same level as the 33 days fortune immortal pill. It would be impossible to exchange for it in a short period of time. He could only rely on the lottery system. Lin Feng had already entered the roulette system and the dice system to take a look, but he didn't find anything that suited him. Therefore, he decided to gamble on the lottery system. After choosing the Pure Yang sword, he placed the small black mountain on it. Lin Feng prayed inwardly. Please give it your all. The small mountain soon disappeared, and in the void, 30 sticks appeared on top of the lot pot. Lin Feng looked carefully. Among the 30 sticks, there were 3 red sticks, 9 long white sticks, 12 white sticks, and 6 short white sticks. The chance of striking the Pure Yang sword is only 10%? Lin Feng frowned. There are a total of 18 white and short white lots. That's a 60% probability, more than half. Is it because the value of the hill is inferior to the Pure Yang sword? Lin Feng pondered. This was the first time he had placed a bet. Without any reference, it was difficult to accurately estimate the rules of the system. The only thing that was certain was that the probability of failure for the lottery system was much higher than for the roulette system and the dice system. There were only 2 slots in the roulette system, so there was a 1 in 9 chance of missing. The dice system was a bit of a scam. There were 2 blanks and 2 numbers that could not be shaken out. There was a 2 out of 9 chance that he would miss. As for the lottery system, just looking at it this time, the probability of losing was as high as 4 out of 10, and there was even a 2 out of 10 chance that he wouldn't get anything, and instead, he would have to pay an Aurus Core stage magical item. Of course, the advantages of the lottery system were obvious. There was a chance of getting something good that he chose. Lin Feng took a deep breath and gave the command. Begin drawing the lots. The 30 sticks fell into the lot pot and spun rapidly. Moments later, they stopped. Silently, all the sticks were placed in the pot. Lin Feng stared at the sticks for a long time. Finally, he had no choice but to give up. The parts of the sticks that were exposed outside the pot were identical. I can't see any differences from the outside, so I can only try my luck. Lin Feng sighed and randomly chose a stick. When the stick floated out of the pot, Lin Feng's pupils suddenly constricted. It's white. Lin Feng held his breath as his chest churned. As the stick rose higher and higher with no end in sight, Lin Feng's heart finally calmed down. Fortunately, he was not completely unlucky. A long white stick. Lin Feng let out a breath of air. It wasn't a white lot that returned the chip item as it was. It wasn't a white lot that wasted a lottery chance. It wasn't a short white lot that lost everything, but a long white lot that randomly exchanged for an item. However, Lin Feng's heart quickly tightened again. Randomly exchanged? Who knew what the hell would be exchanged for? It was fine if it was a good item, but if it was a trash item, this long white stick would be even worse than the original white stick that returned the chips. Lin Feng eagerly watched as the long white lot flashed 3 times in the air and turned into a white light. Within the white light, an item fell down and landed in front of Lin Feng. What is it? Lin Feng looked carefully. It was a palm-sized, token-like thing. It was made of neither gold nor wood, and it was black in color. There was a faint layer of light flowing all over it. The front of the token was engraved with the word Hall. Sect Construction Token. The host can use such a construction token to construct the various buildings and facilities of the sect outside the designated mountain gate. The sturdiness of the buildings and facilities is directly linked to the host's cultivation level. An enemy that is 2 realms higher than the host is required to destroy the sect's buildings. Sect Main Palace Hall Construction Token. The host can use this token to construct the sect's main palace for important sect ceremonies and to receive external guests. In addition, the main palace hall is suitable to be the core of the sect's protective array. After the token is used, the host will have a chance to name the hall after it is constructed. After reading the introduction, Lin Feng was speechless for a long time. He held the token and was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. Is this good? Good. In a sense, it was better than the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill or the Pure Yang Sword. It was the true foundation of the sect and the face of the sect. However, to the present Lin Feng, it did not have any practical effect on improving his strength. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He activated the lucky draw system and put away the token. Feeling the abundant mana in his Qi, Lin Feng showed a satisfied smile. He had gained a lot from his seclusion this time. After coming out of seclusion, a few disciples came to greet him, but Zhu Yi was nowhere to be seen. Xiao Yan explained, second junior brother tried to break through to the 12th level of Qi disciple a few days ago and encountered some bottlenecks. He is also in seclusion now. Lin Feng looked at him and sighed in his heart. The Xiao Yan in front of him was full of mana, like an endless river. He had already reached the 12th level of Qi disciple. During the month that Lin Feng was in seclusion, Xiao Yan had successfully advanced to the 12th level of Qi disciple. Counting with his fingers, it had been exactly a year since he was accepted as a disciple. This young man in black, who had climbed to the peak but fell to the bottom, had finally returned to the 12th level of Qi disciple after 4 years. Lin Feng observed carefully. The Xiao Yan in front of him did not have a feeling of nostalgia, nor was he that cynical. He only had a high fighting spirit and a bit of calmness that had been tempered after experiencing ups and downs. He was no longer bothered by the fact that he had wasted 4 years. Instead, he put all his energy into the path he had to walk in the future, 1 step at a time, fast and steady. Back then, he had used 4 years to advance to the 12th level of Qi disciple. Now, he had done it in 1 year. It was nothing more than good preparation. Lin Feng looked at him and nodded with a smile. Xiao Yan also smiled and did not say anything. He only bowed to Lin Feng. Everything was said without words. Xiao Budian stood at the side and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and patted his little head. Let's go, take Master to find that heavenly gold thunder snake. I will take its blood and baptize you. As he spoke, Lin Feng turned to look at Xiao Yan and Wang Lin. Tianhao can take Master there. You two stay here and protect Zhu. Xiao Yan and Wang Lin both nodded in agreement. Lin Feng paused and looked at Xiao Yan. If Zhu Yi successfully advances to the peak of Qi disciple, tell him not to rush to try to build his foundation. You do the same. Wait for Master to come back, I will make arrangements. Xiao Yan nodded in agreement. Lin Feng immediately raised the black cloud flag and swept up Xiao Budian. Let's go. In the sky thousands of miles away from Lin Feng and the others, the clouds were suddenly torn apart and a green light rushed out. Countless hurricanes twisted around the green light with astonishing power. It should not be far from here. The green light stopped and a huge figure appeared. It had a body like a deer and a head like a sparrow. It had horns and a snake's tail. Its whole body was covered in green light. This was an ancient fierce beast named Fei Lian. Although it was mixed blood, its power was still astonishing and it could use the 9 heavens astral wind. On the back of the Fei Lian sat a small young man. His body was filled with magic power like the ocean. He was a foundation establishment cultivator. He held a compass in his hand. The compass needle was originally pointing in one direction, but it suddenly trembled and could not be located. The young man frowned. Why can't I locate it? Is it hidden by a spatial magic tool? You can't escape from my palm. 3 little bastards, you dare to kill people from my wind god sect? The young man's gloomy face turned fierce. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, you will not escape death. Chapter 103. In the dense primitive forest, Lin Feng controlled the black cloud flag and flew with Xiao Budian. Master, it's over there. Xiao Budian pointed to a valley and said. Lin Feng raised his eyes and looked over. He could feel a violent aura like thunder in the valley. He could clearly feel it from far away. What was even more eye-catching was that above the valley, there was a purple light faintly flashing in the clouds. Lin Feng glanced over and knew that the purple light was actually throbbing lightning. The power of this lightning was 100 times denser than in the valley. Lin Feng observed for a moment and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the golden lightning snake has not started to shed its skin that day. The heavenly gold lightning snake was a mutated vicious beast. Its strength was equivalent to a human cultivator's foundation establishment stage. If it finished shedding its skin, it could evolve into a heavenly gold lightning flood dragon. The snake was born as a flood dragon for 1,000 years and as a dragon for 10,000 years. Once it got rid of the snake's body, it could transform into a flood dragon and roar towards the 9 heavens. However, this kind of evolution was not enough for the heavenly gold lightning snake to rely on its own lightning power. It still needed to borrow the power of heaven and earth and borrow the power of nature's lightning. If it could successfully absorb the lightning power in the thunderclouds above its head, this heavenly gold lightning snake could successfully shed its skin and evolve into a flood dragon. This was also the most crucial moment of the lightning snake's evolution. After the evolution, the heavenly gold lightning flood dragon's strength was equivalent to a human cultivator's golden elixir period. However, when the evolution ended, the heavenly gold lightning flood dragon would be extremely weak. At that time, it would be time for Lin Feng to make his move. Not only was it easy, but the most important thing was to baptize Xiao Budian. The essence blood of the lightning snake and the lightning flood dragon were 2 completely different concepts. Lin Feng had originally planned to use the essence blood of Monk Hui Ku's python to baptize Xiao Budian. However, although the python's blood had been nourished by the thunderclap Zen, it was still not on the same level as the heavenly gold lightning flood dragon. Wave after wave of whistling sounds came from the valley. Lin Feng calmed down and began to wait silently. This wait lasted for 7 days. 7 days later, at noon, the thunderclouds in the sky churned more and more violently, and the purple light in the thunderclouds became more and more dazzling. In the end, the purple light even dispersed the thunderclouds, and a huge hole appeared in the thick clouds above the valley. A sharp howl came from the valley, like a giant snake hissing. However, this howl contained a faint majestic aura, like the roar of a dragon. Hearing this scream, Lin Feng and Xiao Budian's eyes lit up. After that sharp howl, a series of howls rang out. The howls grew louder and louder. They were no longer ear-piercing, but vigorous and vast. With every roar, the thunderclouds in the sky twisted more and more intensely, as if they were brewing something. Lightning filled the sky. From time to time, thick lightning bolts would descend from the sky, falling into the vast sea of trees near the valley, causing black smoke to soar into the sky. Lin Feng set up the black cloud flag and flew into the air. He saw a ball of lightning flashing on the flat ground in the middle of the valley. Within the lightning, the figure of a giant golden snake could be vaguely seen. It was hissing towards the sky with its neck bent. The giant golden snake's huge body continued to twist, and the scales on its body opened up. A strong smell of blood surged in the air, like a small tornado, constantly wreaking havoc. On the top of the giant snake's head, 2 round lumps gradually appeared, becoming sharper and sharper, finally turning into 2 sharp horns. Large pieces of scales fell off one after another, turning into rolling lightning that continuously exploded in the air. Dense electric arcs continuously jumped around the giant snake's body. During this process, the giant golden snake's strength did not weaken in the slightest. Instead, it became even more condensed and powerful. Rumble! Thunderbolts exploded continuously, and thunder rumbled in the dark clouds. At this moment, the atmosphere had already reached the extreme. The thunderclouds in the sky suddenly shook, and the lightning crazily gathered together, turning into a huge bolt of lightning that tore apart the heavens and earth, striking down towards the heavenly gold lightning snake in the valley. Lin Feng squinted his eyes slightly. It's coming. The evolution of the heavenly gold lightning snake was not without risks. The key lay in this final test. If it could successfully withstand the test of the heavenly lightning and absorb the power of the lightning, the heavenly gold lightning snake could evolve into a heavenly gold lightning flood dragon, stepping into a completely different world from then on. However, if the heavenly gold lightning snake could not withstand the heavenly lightning, it would be directly struck into charcoal by the heavenly lightning, leaving no bones behind. If the evolution was successful, as long as it could survive the period of weakness, it would henceforth become an overlord-level demonic beast. If the evolution failed, it would lose everything and disappear from this world. At this moment, Lin Feng, who was waiting to take advantage of the situation, was probably more hopeful than the heavenly gold lightning snake that this evolution would be successful. Looking at the heavenly gold lightning snake that was screaming in pain after being struck by the heavenly lightning, Lin Feng slightly frowned. Its evolution this time is very difficult. Rumble! Another thunderclap sounded in the sky. What he feared had come. There was far more than one bolt of heavenly lightning. Could this heavenly gold lightning snake withstand the continuous strikes of heavenly lightning? As Lin Feng was guessing, he suddenly had a thought and took out the heaven and earth mirror. There was a yellow dot in the center of the heaven and earth mirror, which represented Lin Feng's current location. Not far from the yellow dot, there was a huge red dot that was flashing. It's a foundation establishment cultivator. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth hooked into a smile that was difficult to understand. I'm not the only one who wants to take advantage of this. This person laid down a huge formation here. The magic power of the 8 trigrams heavenly great Tao scripture extended out. Silently, Lin Feng sensed it. Wind-type magic power, it seems like it wants to cause a hurricane. The power is not small, and the area it covers is the entire valley. Lin Feng called the little guy over, gave him the flowing wind talisman, and gave him a few instructions. When the little guy heard this, he raised his eyebrows and laughed. Master, don't worry. Watch me. Lin Feng released him from the black light of the black cloud flag. The little guy ran into the valley like a wisp of smoke and disappeared without a trace. At this time, the thunderclouds violently rolled. Not only in the sky above the valley, Lin Feng shockingly saw countless blue and purple lightning converge from all directions towards the cloud layer above the heavenly gold lightning snake's head. One after another, violent lightning tore through the sky. Under Lin Feng's gaze, it violently poured down and fiercely bombarded the huge body of the heavenly gold lightning snake. In the end, the lightning in the skies suddenly stopped for a moment. The scene was incomparably abnormal and strange. Immediately after, there was an extremely terrifying bolt of lightning that pierced through the heaven and earth, descending into the valley. Boom! The ground in the center of the valley was directly smashed by the heavenly lightning. In the midst of the explosion, countless gravel was sent flying. Lin Feng was far away, but he could feel the ground under his feet unceasingly trembling. This bolt of lightning seemed to have exhausted all the lightning power in the cloud layer. The thunderclouds in the sky actually gradually showed signs of dissipating. Lin Feng steadied his mind and once again looked towards the center of the valley. There, black smoke billowed, blocking Lin Feng's line of sight. Success or failure? Lin Feng muttered to himself. In the next moment he suddenly heard a violent dragon's roar. Although the dragon's roar seemed a bit weak and lacking in energy, its majesty was vast and mighty, piercing through the clouds and splitting rocks. The billowing thick smoke gradually dispersed, revealing a faint purplish-golden radiance. A curled-up body slowly unfolded, revealing 4 claws. There were 2 horns on its head, and its long body was tens of meters long. Impressively, it was a golden flood dragon with lightning lingering all over its body. A demonic beast with the strength of the golden elixir period, the heavenly gold lightning flood dragon. The evolution was a success. Although it exuded a powerful aura, one could see that this newly evolved flood dragon's aura was weak. Clearly, its physical condition was extremely poor. In the process of resisting the heavenly lightning, although it had successfully survived and evolved, this demonic beast's strength had been completely exhausted. If it was given some time to recuperate, then it could very quickly recover the strength and elegance of a golden elixir period demonic beast. Unfortunately, no one would give it this opportunity. Suddenly, dozens of hurricanes swept through the valley, howling and enveloping the entire valley. Countless towering ancient trees were uprooted. Like sharp blades, cracks appeared on the stone walls of the valley. Far away in the sky, a young man with a bird's head, a deer's body, and a bird's head sneered and said, "The mark I left on you is faintly discernible, but I know you are in this valley. I can take care of you and this heavenly gold lightning flood dragon at the same time." The short young man made a hand seal and shouted in a low voice, "Shattering hurricane array, open." In the valley, the strong winds that filled the sky became even more violent. Chapter 104. The short youth sat on the Fei Lian's back and continuously increased the power of the shattering hurricane magic formation. This person was called Gao Long, an elite disciple of the Wind God sect. He originally came here to kill the 3 of them. That day in the Great Hengduan mountain range, the 3 of them clashed with a group of Wind God sect disciples and killed 2 of them in order to fight over the inheritance of a golden elixir period cultivator who failed to cross his tribulation. The group of Wind God sect disciples saw that they were no match for the 3 of them and could only escape in a sorry state. However, before they ran, they used a secret talisman of the sect. It did not have any offensive power, but it could silently leave a mark on the opponent's body. Gao Long followed the mark on the body of the 3 of them and chased them to this area. When the 3 of them were traveling together, the mark on the little guy's body was blocked by the magic power of the Black Cloud flag, so Gao Long lost track of him. Just as he was flustered and exasperated, he suddenly found the heavenly gold thunder snake that was about to shed its skin and evolve. What was lost at the swings, gained at the mulberry elm. Since he couldn't find the little guy, Gao Long started to think about the thunder snake. He was an elite disciple of the Wind God sect's younger generation. Not only did he have a Fei Lian beast as a mount, he was also taught the Wind God sect's secret technique, the diagram of the shattering hurricane magic formation. The thunder snake had successfully evolved into a thunder flood dragon. Although it had the strength of the golden elixir period, it was extremely weak after the evolution. Gao Long had the Fei Lian beast and the shattering hurricane magic formation, so he was naturally not afraid. Just as he was laying down the formation and waiting for the thunder snake to evolve, the mark on the little guy's body suddenly reappeared in his perception. Gao Long was immediately overjoyed. "I can cook you all at once." He immediately increased the power of the shattering hurricane magic formation to the extreme. Inside the formation, a gale swept up sand and stones. The little guy carefully moved forward in the valley. Around his body, an invisible wall blocked the raging gale outside, causing the area around him to remain calm, as if it was the eye of the hurricane. If one looked closely, they would discover that it was a wind wall that continuously revolved around the little guy's body. It was using wind against wind to block the gale of the shattering hurricane magic formation. The little guy looked at the black and yellow scene outside the wind wall and stuck out his tongue. "What Master said is correct. The magic power of this flowing wind symbol seal is limited, and it can't truly block the wind and stabilize it." Right now, I can only walk slowly like this. If I move a little faster, the wind wall might collapse. The little guy took out the flowing wind symbol and poured his own magic power into it. He felt the changes in the magic power fluctuations within the symbol. He raised his head and climbed up a hill. This way. As they approached the peak of the mountain, the storm outside did not change much. However, the protective wind wall created by the flowing wind seal was becoming more and more unstable. Xiao Budian knew that he was getting closer and closer to one of the vital points of the formation. The magic power here affected the effects of the flowing wind seal. Cracks began to appear on the transparent wind wall, and from time to time, a few black winds would leak in. The little guy's cute little face immediately wrinkled into a bun. Continue forward, I'm afraid the flowing wind symbol seal won't be able to hold on much longer. Just as he was feeling anxious, the heavenly gold lightning flood dragon's painful roars echoed from the heart of the distant valley. The heavenly gold lightning flood dragon had just finished molting. Although it had reached the level of the golden elixir period, it was currently at its weakest point in history. Currently, it was surrounded by over 10 tornadoes, and it was simply in so much pain that it wished it was dead. Its roars were filled with unwillingness. If its strength was restored to its peak, breaking through this formation would have been easy. However, right now, it was being beaten into a sorry state. A broken ship still had 4 genes of nails. The heavenly gold lightning flood dragon hissed, and its body suddenly soared into the air. It opened its mouth, and a bright and resplendent golden lightning rapidly condensed within its mouth. In the next moment, the heavenly gold lightning flood dragon spat out a lump of golden lightning. With a rumbling sound, it collided with the astral winds that filled the sky. Both sides were locked in a stalemate, and it actually benefited the little guy. All of the shattering hurricane demonic formation's power was used to deal with the heavenly gold lightning flood dragon's body. The pressure on the flowing wind symbol seal was immediately greatly reduced, and the transparent wind wall once again stabilized. The little guy quietly cheered, and immediately continued to climb towards the peak of the mountain. When he arrived at the peak of the mountain, he saw that there was an old pine tree at the peak of the mountain. There was a green flag stuck in the soil, and a Fei Lian beast was embroidered on the flag. There were even a few lines that outlined the appearance of a tornado. The little guy remembered Lin Feng's warning, "This is different from the last time you broke the 24 Heavens Arhat formation. The flowing wind symbol seal can only be used to guide the direction and cannot help you remove the opponent's formation equipment. If you want to break the formation, you can only rely on your own ability." The little guy took a deep breath. His hand grasped the flowing wind symbol seal, and his mind recalled a few months ago when he and his 2 senior brothers obtained the lightning origin symbol seal together. After they obtained the lightning origin symbol seal, they combined the wind and lightning symbol seal. The 2 types of power complemented each other, and as a result, they unexpectedly burst forth with an extremely powerful force. It was precisely because they grasped the knack and obtained the help of the symbol seal that the strength of the 3 of them improved by leaps and bounds. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Zhu Yi to jump from the 7th level of Qi disciple to the 11th level in such a short amount of time just by relying on the inheritance of that golden elixir cultivator. Wind and lightning transformation, endless. The little guy pondered for a moment and extended both of his hands forward. Lightning flickered on his right hand, emitting the sound of electric currents. The berserk lightning gradually condensed into the shape of a long blade. This was precisely the technique that Lin Feng taught him, the technique he comprehended from the 9 Heavens Thunder technique, the berserk thunder lightning blade. However, the little guy was not in a hurry to make his move. Instead, he maintained the huge thunder blade in his right hand while communicating with the flowing wind symbol seal in his left hand. The flowing wind symbol seal produced streams of air, and under the little guy's careful control, they began to unceasingly twine around the long blade formed from thunder and lightning. The flow of air became faster and faster, and gradually turned into a small tornado that supported the thunder and lightning blade. There were many times when the tornado and the thunder blade interfered with each other, and they almost collapsed together. However, the little guy was extremely meticulous in controlling every minute change in the technique, and forcibly maintained the tornado and thunder blade. Later on, he gradually knocked on the door. Not only did the power of wind and thunder no longer interfere with each other, they instead began to support each other. The little guy laughed. It's just like this. The wind and thunder surged, and under the mutual nourishment, the hurricane thunder blade in the little guy's hands became more and more astonishing. The thunder blade's length extended to over 10 meters, and the blade's edge was over a meter wide. On the blade's body, the roaring tornado continuously twisted. "Yeah, break for me," the little guy shouted loudly. The hurricane thunder blade in his hands directly tore apart the black storm in front of him and heavily chopped onto the green flagpole. The Fei Lian beast's eyes on the flag emitted light, and it angrily roared. The green flag's rays of light flourished, and it wanted to block the little guy's attack. However, the hurricane and thunder exploded together, and the berserk power directly blew that green flag into pieces. Gao Long, who was in midair, sensed it with his mind, and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. He suddenly became angry. "Stinky brat, you're courting death." Gao Long urged the Fei Lian beast to dive downwards, directly killing towards the little guy on top of the mountain peak. More than 10 black tornadoes rushed out from his sleeves, whistling and exploding towards the little guy. The little guy's body flickered with lightning, but he could not block the opponent's black tornado. The huge difference between the magical power of a Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator and a Qi Condensation Realm Cultivator was completely revealed in this exchange. The tornado angrily roared, exploding onto the little guy's body, smashing him into the ground. It tightly pressed down on him and rapidly spun downwards like a drill. The mountain peak that was completely made out of solid granite was smashed into pieces, and dust flew everywhere. If it was a normal cultivator at the Great Circle of Qi Condensation, they would have died a long time ago after receiving this kind of attack. However, the little guy's physical body was extremely powerful. Although his little face was deathly pale, and his body was covered in dust, he actually forcibly withstood this attack. Gao Long rode the Fei Lian above him, and looked down at the little guy from above. He coldly snorted, "You little bastard, you can actually take a beating. Today, this young master wants to see how many magical techniques you can use on me." The little guy snorted, "Hey, are you going to continue being savage? The more ruthlessly you bully me, the more ruthlessly my master will take care of you in a bit." Gao Long laughed heartily. "Your master is nearby? So what? At most, he's just a little Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator." He stared at the little guy and cruelly smiled. "You still don't know, right? Only Golden Elixir period cultivators can discover the talisman that my sect's secret technique placed on your body. You two master and disciple were completely unaware of it. From this, it can be seen that your master is only SOSO. At most, he's just a Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator." Gao Long sneered, "This young master has the Fei Lian and Shattering Hurricane magic formation in my hands. Under the Golden Elixir period, I'm invincible. Let that dog fart master of yours come out. This young master will teach him a lesson. Don't always act like a big clove of garlic in front of your own disciple. He's still too far away." Gao Long waved his hand, and several more black tornadoes pounced towards the little guy. "Before that, I'll slaughter you little bastard first." Chapter 105. Several black tornadoes roared towards the little guy. Not only was the little guy not afraid, he even smiled and made a face at Gao Long. "Shorty, you're in trouble?" The air suddenly distorted strangely, and the black tornadoes that were already in front of the little guy suddenly disappeared without a trace. The air was so calm, it was as if the tornadoes that were wreaking havoc just a moment ago had never existed. Gao Long opened his eyes wide and was so shocked that he couldn't speak. The tornadoes weren't quelled by magic power, nor were they destroyed by other attacks. They just disappeared into thin air. No, they didn't disappear into thin air. Gao Long could still feel the connection between himself and the tornadoes. He turned his head and looked into the distance. There, in the originally peaceful forest, several black tornadoes suddenly appeared without warning, ravaging the vast sea of trees and turning it into ruins. Someone had moved the tornado they had created to that place. Gao Long turned his head, and a young Taoist wearing a white robe and a star crown appeared beside the little guy. The little guy cheered, "Master?" Lin Feng nodded his head and said with a smile, "Well done." The little guy pouted and said with a grievance, "Master, that shorty bullied me." "Shorty?" Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. "Stinking brat, you're not that big yourself, right? He's a foundation establishment cultivator, and his magic inheritance isn't weak either. It's normal that you're not his opponent right now, but after you build your foundation, you can directly beat him up. It'll be easy and fun." Hearing the conversation between Lin Feng and his disciple, Gao Long was so angry that his face turned ashen. "Alright, I want to see how easy and fun you can be." Gao Long let out a low shout, and put his hands together in front of his chest, forming a spell together. The shattering hurricane magic formation laid down in the valley suddenly abandoned the heavenly gold thunder dragon, and all of its power gathered together, turning into an endless hurricane that pounced towards Lin Feng and Gao Long. Although the little guy tore apart one of the flags, and the formation's power was greatly reduced, Gao Long was furious and directly spat out a mouthful of essence blood. The essence blood fell into the hurricane and instantly disappeared, but the hurricane underwent a shocking change. The originally black hurricane instantly turned blood red, as if countless scarlet dragons were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they pounced towards Lin Feng. A bloody and evil aura assaulted their faces, dyeing half the sky red. How could I not notice a mere magic imprint? But I don't take it to heart. I'll take as many as you come. Lin Feng faintly smiled, his expression calm. He just extended his right index finger and lightly pointed. Two-realm space technique. The magic power of the 8 trigrams of the Great Tao Scripture of the heavens began to circulate, communicating with 2 different space-time, shifting the heavens. This is a spell that Lin Feng himself comprehended from the 8 trigrams heavenly Great Tao canon. It is his own creation, a spell that has never appeared in the entire heaven primal world since ancient times. Just like the Tao technique of the 8 trigrams book of the Great Tao of the heavens, this is a spell that completely belongs to Lin Feng. The void in front of Lin Feng distorted at a speed that was almost imperceptible to the naked eye. And in this area of the void, the blood-red tornado that was ferociously pouncing towards Lin Feng suddenly completely disappeared. It wasn't forcefully destroyed by someone, nor was it because the hurricane gradually calmed down and dissolved. Instead, it silently disappeared in front of Lin Feng. At the same time, the void in front of Gao Long also twisted. Then, Gao Long's face turned green. He saw the blood-red hurricane that had mysteriously disappeared suddenly pounce towards its owner. The distance was so close, and the speed was so fast that he didn't even have time to cancel the technique. A jade belt on Gao Long's waist suddenly lit up, followed by an ear-piercing sound of wind. A formless astral wind surged out to meet the blood-red hurricane. This astral wind was formless and colorless, and it looked completely transparent. One could only faintly see the slight distortion of space, revealing its existence. The formless astral wind seemed ordinary, but it was like an indestructible long knife, directly splitting the sky full of blood-red hurricane in half. The 9 heavens formless astral wind was a powerful wind-type magical power cultivated from the wind god Sek's supreme wind god formless art. It was formless and indestructible, and it came from the 9 heavens, splitting the sky and splitting the earth. This jade belt was a protective artifact specially refined by Gao Long's sect elders for him to protect his life at a critical moment. Gao Long, who was still in shock, looked at Lin Feng and suddenly waved his hand. The formless astral wind slashed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. "It seems that you don't understand. Compared to the wind you control, my power is truly formless." As he spoke, Lin Feng and Tiny Tot had already disappeared from where they stood. The 9 heavens formless astral wind lost its target and slashed the mountain peak, directly cutting it off. The huge mountain peak rumbled downwards. But it could not hurt even a hair on Lin Feng's head. Gao Long was finally afraid. This person is powerful. The 9 heavens formless astral wind was refined by an elder after all, and I still can't control it freely. I'm not his opponent. Today, I'll escape first and go back to gather the sex experts to surround and kill them. Gao Long patted the wind beast Fei Lian beneath him and turned to run. The Fei Lian was a wind-type spirit beast with astonishing speed. It turned into a ray of green light and could travel thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. Gao Long was proud of himself. Even if I can't beat you, you can't do anything to me. When I go back and gather the sex experts, I'll make sure you die without a burial place. Lin Feng looked at Gao Long's receding figure and sighed. You still don't understand. Lin Feng raised his hand and pointed, activating the Two Realms Void technique again. Gao Long and the Fei Lian, who had already escaped far away, only felt their vision blur. The space around them twisted slightly, and they were actually transported back to Lin Feng. All that running for his life had been in vain. Gao Long's face turned snow-white in an instant. He pointed at Lin Feng and shouted anxiously, "Nine Heavens Formless Astral Wind." The jade belt on his waist lit up again. Lin Feng smiled slightly, but he was already one step ahead of Gao Long and pointed with his finger. Compared to the astral wind and thunder above the nine heavens and the surging lava below, the power of space is actually the strongest attack. Because, in a sense, attacks that come from the rupture of space can't be defended against. The Two Realms Void technique was activated. Gao Long's mind was in a trance, and he looked around blankly. Why is that Taoist so far away from me? Gao Long's eyes widened. That's my Fei Lian on it? A strange scene appeared in Gao Long's vision. In the distance, Lin Feng was still facing off against the Fei Lian. And on the back of the Fei Lian, there was also a person sitting. More accurately, it was half a person who only had the lower half of his body. His body from the waist up had completely disappeared. Gao Long looked down in a daze. He saw that his body from the waist down, his lower body, and his legs had all disappeared. Various internal organs were dripping with blood as they fell to the ground. Only then did he feel an intense pain that overwhelmed his senses. No! Gao Long let out a heart-wrenching howl. Only the upper half of his body was left, and it fell to the ground. Before it hit the ground, it had already stopped breathing in midair. Lin Feng rubbed his chin. This scene is a little inappropriate for children. He turned his head to look at Xiao Budian, who was at the side, and saw that the little fellow's eyes were wide open. He muttered, "This move is so powerful. I was thinking too much." Lin Feng immediately retreated in defeat. He patted Xiao Budian's head and turned his gaze to the trembling Fei Lian in front of him. He smiled and said, "Although it's mixed blood, it's still a descendant of an ancient species. You're lucky, kid. Not only do you have the true blood of the heavenly gold thunder Jiao, someone even delivered it to your doorstep and gave you the true blood of a Fei Lian." Hearing this, Xiao Budian also smiled and directly jumped onto the back of the Fei Lian beast. The Fei Lian growled, looking extremely dissatisfied. However, when it noticed that Lin Feng was staring at it with a smile, its entire body trembled. It didn't dare to move at all, and it let Xiao Budian ride on its back. Lin Feng waved his hand, and the lower half of Gao Long's body fell to the ground. However, his belt that could release the nine heavens formless astral wind naturally fell into Lin Feng's hands. The jade belt vibrated violently, wanting to break through the air and fly away. Lin Feng pointed his finger and laid down the heaven cage sigil, sealing the jade belt. Then, he descended from the sky and arrived at the center of the valley. The heavenly gold thunder Jiao's evolution had exhausted all of its energy, and it was also attacked by Gao Long's shattering hurricane magic formation. At this moment, it was on its last breath and had no strength to struggle. Lin Feng also used the heaven cage sigil to seal the thunder Jiao. Then, with a wave of the black cloud flag, the thunder Jiao's huge body was stored away. After doing all this, Lin Feng also jumped onto the back of the Fei Lian beast. He smiled at Xiao Budian and said, "Let's go, we've gained quite a lot this time. You don't have to worry about your baptism anymore." Xiao Budian's big black eyes turned, and he smiled and said, "Master, can you give me his belt as well?" Lin Feng patted Xiao Budian in annoyance and said, "Your eyeballs are really poisonous. However, I still have some use for this thing, so I'm afraid I can't give it to you. However, when we return this time, there's something good waiting for you. Not only you, but all 4 of you will also have a share. Xiao Budian's eyes lit up and said, "What is it, master?" Chapter 106. The eastern end of the great Zhou dynasty was close to the vast sea. It was already evening. The clouds in the western sky were dyed red by the setting sun, but there was also a dazzling golden glow. A flock of seabirds flew across the sparkling sea, tiredly returning to their nests. The fresh sea breeze blew, and the waves rolled up and down. The afterglow of the setting sun made the waves look magnificent. A ray of light suddenly appeared on the surface of the sea in the distance. The sky was blue, and the white light floated. A wheel of white light slowly rose from the horizon. A bright moon appeared above the sea. In the white light, a young girl in green sat cross-legged. Her eyes were slightly closed, and there was a peaceful expression on her beautiful face. She suddenly opened her eyes and stood up. Supported by the white light, she stood on top of the waves. She looked into the distant sky and bowed. Disciple Yan Mingyue greets master. In the distant sky, a red cloud descended. The cloud changed shape in the sky and gradually revealed a person's facial features. It was also a woman. She had the charm of an adult woman, but she also looked like a little girl who had yet to grow up. The face formed by the red cloud occupied half the sky. It stared at Yan Mingyue, who was on the waves, and asked kindly, "How's your recovery?" Yan Mingyue smiled faintly. "Thank you, master, for helping me reconstruct my physical body. Now, my divine soul and physical body have completely merged, and there are no barriers between them. However, if I want to recover my previous cultivation, I still need some time and effort." The woman in the sky smiled and nodded. "That's for the best. I can rest assured now. Mingyue, although you've encountered a great disaster this time, it might be a blessing in disguise." The woman said slowly, "It's just that the temple has chosen a new Empyrean walker. You still need to wait for the right time to return to the sect." Yan Mingyue nodded to show that she understood. If she only wanted to return to the Taishu temple and become an ordinary disciple, she could return anytime. However, if she had other thoughts, she would have to wait for the right time. "I have a feeling that the right time is coming." Yan Mingyue suddenly smiled. The woman in the sky also smiled. "Could it be that the opportunity you speak of has something to do with the itinerant cultivator called Taoist Lin that you mentioned before?" Yan Mingyue smiled and nodded. "He might be able to bring us some surprises." "Then I shall wait and see." The woman asked, "Regarding the choice you told me before, have you made your final decision?" Silently, Yan Mingyue said, "Yes, I am prepared to choose the great Zhou dynasty. Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu work well with each other, and they have already swept away all the other restraining powers in the country. It should be the dynasty with the highest chance of success." The red clouds in the sky gradually dispersed, and the woman's face also disappeared. The clouds dispersed. The sun had completely set, and the sky was dark. Yan Mingyue looked at the countless stars twinkling in the dark night sky above her head and was lost in thought for a while. A moment later, she came back to her senses. She raised her hand and drew a talisman in the air. The talisman was thrown into the sea. Not long after, a person rose from the sea. It was a man made of water. His entire body was made of water, and his entire body was transparent and shimmering. Yan Mingyue smiled and said, "Spread the news. Let the news reach the ears of my junior brother, who will be the successor of the Empyrean walker." The waterman hesitated for a moment before asking, "If your junior brother hears that the lost stone flute is in the hands of Taoist Lin, he definitely won't let it go. Can that Taoist Lin pose a threat to your junior brother?" Yan Mingyue was not displeased by the water person's doubt. Instead, she smiled and said, "Let him test out my junior brother's strength." The water person bowed and agreed, then sank back into the sea. Yan Mingyue looked up at the starry sky above her head and went into a daze again. "Am I being too sensitive? I have a feeling that you will become a great enemy of my Taishu temple in the future." Why do I have a feeling that the person who will be at a disadvantage will be my junior brother? This person is so strange. I have so much confidence in him for no reason. Yen Mingyue narrowed her eyes and her lips curled into a faint smile. Perhaps, it's actually my junior brother who will test out your strength? The great heaven primordial world belonged to the human world. It was known as the divine land. In contrast, the demon realm belonged to the demon race. It was known as the vast infinite land. In a secluded little valley in the millions of mountains at the extreme east of the vast infinite land, there was a towering tree with lush branches and leaves that covered the sky and the sun. The tree's crown covered an entire area of nearly an acre. The branches of the tree were as white as jade, almost transparent, and the leaves were a demonic blue. They flickered with a cold light and emitted a chilling aura. However, there was no need to doubt the exuberant vitality within it. Even if a small branch was broken off from it and planted in the most barren land, it would immediately grow and become a mature tree. However, there was a strange aura of desolation and viciousness within it. Not a single blade of grass grew within a radius of several hundred feet around the giant tree. The white jade-like tree trunk suddenly lit up. A barefooted girl in white clothes walked out from the tree trunk. Her face was beautiful and her eyes and smile exuded an intoxicating charm. Long Yi greets master. The air in front of her emitted ripple-like folds. A girl slowly walked out from within. Her entire body seemed to be enveloped by a layer of mist, making it hard for people to see her appearance clearly. She was Long Ye's master, the great sage of the demon race, Tian Mei. The enchantress slowly opened his mouth, his voice as low and hoarse as Long Ye's. If it wasn't for that Langshen jade leaf that came from the same source as you probably wouldn't have been able to reconstruct your body so quickly. Long Yi lowered her head and smiled faintly. I actually have to thank that strange human. The enchantress asked, you gave him the stone flute that Taishu Temple was tracking? Long Ye's face revealed a mischievous smile like a little girl. Not only that, disciple also gave the news to Yen Mingyue. Well done. The enchantress's voice also carried a bit of a smile. However, why did you also tell him the location of that cave residence? A bewitching light flickered in Long Ye's eyes. Disciple has a feeling that this person's ambitions aren't small. If he really can become successful, he will definitely have an impact on Taishu Temple and the other large human powers. The enchantress said nonchalantly, you're that confident? Disciple is also just relying on a feeling. Long Yi smiled faintly, even if it's wrong, there's no loss, right? That cave residence isn't a place that our powers can reach in the first place. So what if we let him occupy it? Also, the enchantress laughed lowly. Also, that old golden crow's descendant is currently active in the vicinity of that cave residence. Long Yi smiled sweetly and pounced forward to hug her master's arm. Hasn't the golden crow great sage been causing trouble for you in recent years? This disciple will also find something for him to do. Let him exercise his old bones. The master and disciple looked at each other and laughed together. Lin Feng brought Xiao Budian back to where Xiao Yan and the others were. Zhu Yi had already come out of seclusion. Lin Feng swept a glance at him and saw that the mana around his body was abundant and flowing freely. He had already successfully broken through the bottleneck and advanced to the 12th level of Qi disciple. Lin Feng beckoned the four people to come in front of him and said with a smile, the Dao techniques that Master passed on to you before are all different. Among them, there are even Buddhist Dao techniques and inherited Dao techniques obtained from your own opportunities and treasures. You might find it strange that we don't have our own Dao techniques so we can only copy others' wisdom? The four little fellows looked at each other. Xiao Yan scratched his head. It's indeed a bit strange to occasionally think blindly when there's nothing to do, but it's not to the extent of doubting Master. I believe that you have your own considerations. Zhu Yi said in a deep voice, although the Dao techniques that we learn are different and appear to be heterogeneous, Master teaches according to our aptitudes. Chapter 107. For the first time, water was added to the furnace of the outer sky core. The wrath of the unmovable deity and the furnace's own internal fire burned together. The water in the furnace was already boiling. If not for Lin Feng's careful control of the fire, the water would have evaporated in the blink of an eye. After advancing to the foundation building stage, Lin Feng did not need the help of the 24 Heaven Arhat formation to activate the wrath of the unmovable deity. This time, the outer sky core was not used to refine medicine, but to refine people. Lin Feng added more than 10 kinds of rare poisonous insects and spirit medicines into the water. The water in the furnace suddenly became colorful, and all kinds of strange smells wafted out. Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and Wang Lin stared at the medicinal concoction in the outer sky core, and their faces all turned green. Then, the three of them smiled at the same time and looked at the little guy. The little guy had already taken a bath and cleaned himself. He took off all his clothes, and his body was white and tender. There was also a layer of faint light circulating around his body. He looked beautiful and cute. At this moment, he covered his lower body with his hands and covered his little bird, and stared at the outer sky core. Feeling the evil smiles of the three senior brothers, the little guy swallowed his saliva and puffed out his chest. He looked like he was facing death with equanimity, which made Xiao Yan and the other two laugh even more. Seeing that the medicinal concoction was almost done, Lin Feng waved his hands, and the precious blood of the heavenly gold thunder flood dragon, which was constantly flashing with electric arcs, tumbled out of a container, turned into a blood arrow, and was injected into the outer sky core. Lin Feng chuckled and looked towards the Fei Lian the wind beast that was shivering by the stove. When the Fei Lian beast met Lin Feng's eyes, it immediately showed a very human-like expression of fear. After shivering, it stretched out one of its front hooves, and then turned its head to the side, not daring to look anymore. Good. Lin Feng nodded his head in satisfaction. With a swipe of the finger of his right hand, he made a cut on the front hoof of the Fei Lian beast. Instantly, a stream of green blood that was as light as a cloud dripped into the furnace of the outer sky. The medicinal concoction in the furnace had already been boiled to a greenish-purple color. It flickered with a dazzling golden light, and bursts of medicinal fragrance assailed the nostrils. Lin Feng looked at the fire and ordered, "Tianhao, go down." "I've already prepared everything, master." The little guy responded and moved. He jumped into the outer sky flame furnace, and a medicinal concoction immediately submerged him. With a wave of his hand, Lin Feng covered the cauldron once again, sealing the entire cauldron. Separated by the furnace of the outer sky, although he could not see it with the naked eye, Lin Feng's mind was connected to the furnace, so he was always paying attention to Tiny Tot's condition. At this moment, the little guy was forming a seal with both of his hands and sitting cross-legged. The magical power around his body was circulating. It was the 8 trigrams Great Way scripture that Lin Feng had just taught him. With the help of the magical power, Tiny Tot's flesh and blood were glowing. All of his pores opened up, and rays of multicolored light gushed out. The medicinal concoction in the cauldron continuously entered Tiny Tot's body through his pores, and then brought out some impure substances, which were repeatedly baptized. The medicinal concoction was extremely overbearing and violent. Every time it entered Tiny Tot's body, it would crazily attack. That feeling was as if all of his internal organs, bones, muscles, and meridians were all shattered, and then reassembled. It went on and on endlessly. Tiny Tot clenched his teeth and did not move. Although his body was in pain, his mind was still clear. A full day and night passed. Tiny Tot was still sitting in the outer sky core furnace, persistently using the medicinal concoction to temper his body. Outside the furnace, Xiao Yan and the other two were nervously watching the outer sky core furnace. "Master, isn't the firepower too strong?" Xiao Yan asked worriedly. Lin Feng had always maintained a grasp of the latest situation. Hearing this, he smiled and shook his head. "No, and your junior brother is about to come out?" Before he finished speaking, Tiny Tot's scream came from within the pill furnace. "Burnt! Burnt! Master, quickly open the furnace." Lin Feng laughed out loud. With a wave of his hand, the lid of the furnace flew up, and a little fellow that looked like a coal ball rushed out of the pill furnace with a whoosh. His entire body was pitch black, and only a pair of big black and white eyes were spinning around. There was clean water prepared at the side, waiting for him to wash up. Tiny Tot washed his charred body clean, revealing his pure white and sparkling little body, which was like a jade peck. Xiao Yan's eyes turned. He took out the Evil Radiance Overlord sword and threw it towards Tiny Tot. "Junior brother, let us see your current strength." Tiny Tot extended his right hand and caught the Evil Radiance Overlord sword that Xiao Yan had thrown over. He directly held the huge black sword steadily in midair with one hand. Xiao Yan and the other two let out exclamations of surprise. Even Lin Feng was surprised. They had all tried to grab the Evil Radiance Overlord sword and knew that this huge sword could suppress the flow of magic power. Therefore, when they picked up this sword, magic power could not help much, and they had to rely more on pure physical strength. The weight of the Evil Radiance Overlord sword itself was more than 5,000 jin. Tiny Tot held the sword with one hand without swaying or swaying. If he exerted force with both arms, it would probably be more than 15,000 jin. As for this kid, he was only 5 years old this year. Just like other children, as he grew older, his physical strength would naturally increase proportionally. If he were to wait until he reached adulthood, how terrifying would his physical strength be? Xiao Yan and the other two subconsciously swallowed their saliva. Zhu Yi and Wang Lin were fine. The two of them mainly cultivated magic techniques and did not dabble much in physical martial arts. However, the pressure on Xiao Yan was a little greater. I knew this kid was a beast, but I didn't expect him to be such a beast. Lin Feng also shook his head and sighed. It seems like the root bone of 10 is not only reflected in the Supreme Tao Foundation, even the physical strength is so heaven-defying. It really is worthy of being a full root bone. After Tiny Tot completed the baptism, he could begin the next stage of cultivation. Not only him, but also Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi. The three of them had already reached the 12th level of Qi Disciple, and their accumulations were also extremely abundant. Under Lin Feng's supervision, they began to attempt to build their foundation. The three of them entered a state of seclusion together. Wang Lin's eyes flickered, but he did not say anything. Lin Feng smiled and looked at him. "Are you envious? If you are envious, then you have to work harder." Wang Lin's cultivation was only at the 3rd level of Qi Disciple. Lin Feng previously said that the level of his cultivation was too high, and it was not suitable for Qi Disciple cultivators to build their foundation. He could only start cultivating when he built his foundation, so it was not good to pass on the 8 trigrams Great Way to him now. In fact, with Wang Lin's current situation, continuing to cultivate the Underworld Nirvana technique was the most suitable path. With the help of the Underworld Pearl, he could cultivate this Tao with twice the result with half the effort. However, when teaching the 8 trigrams Great Way to the other 3, Lin Feng allowed Wang Lin to listen, mainly to help him broaden his horizons and comprehend by analogy, which was more beneficial for his cultivation. At this time, Wang Lin suddenly said, "Master, when I listened to you teaching the Tao to the 3 of them, I had some ideas to improve the underworld finger. Please help me look at it." Lin Feng's pupils suddenly shrank. "You improved the underworld finger?" Wang Lin nodded. "Some immature ideas. Please guide me, master." Lin Feng was a bit absent-minded for a moment. 10 points of comprehension, 10 points of comprehension. At this moment, Lin Feng was even a bit numb. As expected, his sect was a nest of monsters. After giving some pointers to Wang Lin, he let him cultivate by himself, while Lin Feng secretly took out the 24 relics while guarding the 4 disciples. After carefully feeling the Buddhist mana within and sifting through it, Lin Feng took out 18 relics and used his own mana to refine them. The 18 relics formed a circle on top of Lin Feng's head, and a faint Buddhist light flashed. The mana runes in the relics kept changing and were engraved on the relics. These relics were all formed from the remains of the Buddhist bigwigs. If Hui Ku hadn't refined them once before, Lin Feng would have to spend a lot more effort to refine them successfully. Even so, Lin Feng still spent a full 3 months to successfully refine the 18 relics one by one. Finally, the Buddhist light gradually faded, and the last relic was refined. The 18 relics fell on the ground together and arranged themselves in a strange pattern. Lin Feng sighed and picked up the remaining 6 relics that hadn't been refined yet. These 6 masters, I'll have to trouble you. Death is like a lamp going out, and your body is just a bag of smelly flesh. I think you actually won't mind. Alright, I admit that I'm actually comforting myself. Lin Feng separated the 2 batches of relics and stored them properly. Silently, he started to wait. He felt something and looked towards the place where Xiao Yan and the other 2 secluded themselves. This feeling they're going to come out? Chapter 108. At the place where Xiao Yan and the other 2 were in seclusion, there was a surge of magical energy that was as vast as the sea. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and then he heard the system's notification sound in his ear. Congratulations to the host's direct disciple, Shi Tianhao, for advancing to the Foundation Establishment stage. Congratulations to the host's direct disciple, Xiao Yan, for advancing to the Foundation Establishment stage. Because half of the host's direct disciples have successfully advanced to the Foundation Establishment stage, the host is specially rewarded by the system. The host's current cultivation level has increased by 1 small stage. Wait a minute. Lin Feng was nodding nonstop, but when he heard the last notification, he was instantly stunned. Then he realized that a vast amount of clear qi was pouring down from the top of his head into the dantian that was formed after he advanced to the Foundation Establishment stage. Under the guidance of this clear qi, Lin Feng only felt that the magical energy in his dantian was spinning rapidly, as if it had turned into a huge whirlpool. In the center of that whirlpool, a beer was slowly rising. The beer looked ordinary and there was no light flowing out of it, but it emitted a desolate and majestic aura, as if it could suppress the fate of the heavens and rule over the world. Above the dantian was a beer, and the path to core formation was within reach. This beer was the symbol of a cultivator reaching the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. After careful observation, Lin Feng sighed softly. The beer was divided into different levels. If there was only 1 level, it would be the lowest, a 9th tier beer. If there were 2 levels, it would be an 8th tier beer, and so on. The best 1st tier beer would have a total of 9 levels. And the beer that rose from Lin Feng's dantian was a 1st tier beer with 9 levels. In the future, when a 1st tier pill cauldron was erected on the beer, the golden elixir path would be just around the corner. The system had constructed the beer for Lin Feng based on the 8 trigrams Universal Great Way scripture that he was currently cultivating. From this, it could be seen how domineering the 8 trigrams Universal Great Way scripture was. That's why people say that a man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Lin Feng shook his head. Logically speaking, a grade 1 spirit platform is extremely good. Only one can appear out of billions of cultivators. They are all geniuses among geniuses, monsters among monsters. In a concentration camp for geniuses like the Taishu Temple, it was extremely rare for a Foundation Establishment disciple to reach the 1st stage spiritual platform stage. However, compared to Xiao Budian's previous Supreme Spirit platform, the 1st grade spirit platform was still a little lacking. Lin Feng shook his head with a smile and said, all right, be content. How can I take all the advantages? While he was deep in thought, the sound of a system notification rang in his head once more. Congratulations to host's direct disciple Zhu Yi for advancing to Foundation Establishment stage. Because more than half of the host's direct disciples succeeded in building their foundations within 3 years of entering the sect, the host is specially rewarded with a system upgrade of the spirit platform tier. Lin Feng was stunned speechless this time. Dumbfounded, he stared at the 9-tiered spirit platform in his Qi. It suddenly shone brightly, and at the very top, the radiance converged, causing the spirit platform to rise by another level. The 10th level, the Supreme Spirit Platform. When the Supreme Pill Cauldron was erected on the spiritual platform, the Supreme Great Tao was waving at Lin Feng. After a long while, Lin Feng came back to his senses. He almost couldn't help but look up to the sky and laugh 3 times. You deceiving system, you've finally shown some strength for once. Lin Feng circulated his mana and immediately felt a huge difference. When Lin Feng was in the early stages of foundation establishment, his mana was vigorous. When he used it with all his might, it was like a raging river or a boiling sea, surging violently. With just a thought, the vigorous mana suddenly roared like a tsunami. Although the momentum was great and the power was astonishing, the power was still somewhat scattered. Now that the spirit platform had been established, Lin Feng's mana became like a reef that stood on the seashore for thousands of years. No matter how strong the wind was or how strong the waves were, it would not budge. Once the spirit platform was established, the amount of mana was still the same, but it was 3 to 5 times more concentrated than before. At this time, when Lin Feng fought with others, the power of his spells would immediately increase by a lot. A target that couldn't be destroyed by a tsunami would be smashed to pieces by a falling meteorite. Once a cultivator reached the middle stages of foundation establishment, the spirit platform realm, their mana would become extremely condensed and would not be easily dispersed by others. At the same time, it would move according to the cultivator's will. They could instantly mobilize all the mana in their body as if they were moving their arms and fingers. It was like a battle between two armies. Both sides had the same amount of troops, but one side could quickly mobilize their troops and then concentrate their superior forces to deal a fatal blow to the opponent. As a result, the side that was slow to gather would naturally suffer a great loss. And with the Supreme Spirit Platform, Lin Feng's mana was more condensed than cultivators from 1st to 9th grade Spirit Platform realm. He could circulate it more freely and quickly. Lin Feng opened his eyes and looked at Xiao Yan and the other two who were slowly walking out of seclusion. He was overjoyed in his heart. It's all thanks to you 3 stinky brats that you've worked hard. It really wasn't in vain that I spent so much effort and deceived you to take you in as my disciples. He was so happy that he was dancing with joy in his heart. Lin Feng had to use all of his willpower to maintain a calm appearance. He looked at his 3 disciples and said with a faint smile, "You guys are very good. You didn't slack off. You're all very good." Xiao Yan, Xiao Budian, and Zhu Yi were also in high spirits. They all knelt and bowed to Lin Feng. It's all thanks to Master's careful teachings. Lin Feng shook his head and said with a smile, "A master can lead you in, but cultivation is up to you. If you guys are really rotten wood that can't be carved, then no matter how much effort I put in, I won't be able to teach you guys." He glanced at the 3 of them and said indifferently, "People who have a goal in their hearts and are willing to put in all of their effort to achieve their goal, even the heavens will not mistreat them. In the future, the 3 of you must also remember to work hard to improve and have a consistent state of mind during this period of time." The 3 of them had solemn expressions and solemnly accepted his teachings. "We will sincerely follow Master's teachings." Hearing Lin Feng's words, the 3 of them felt something in their hearts. For a moment, they were all lost in thought and didn't say anything. Xiao Budian looked at the distant horizon. "Father, Mother, where are you guys now? I will soon have the ability to find you guys." Xiao Yan clenched his fists. "Murong Yenren, there are less than 2 years left. I will definitely return the humiliation I suffered that day several times over." Zhu Yi slightly closed his eyes and calmed his agitated mind. "I must let Father admit his mistake in front of Mother's grave, and I must let Mother's soul in heaven be comforted." At this time, Lin Feng turned his gaze to Wang Lin. During this period of time, Wang Lin's cultivation had also risen from the 3rd level of Qi disciple to the 4th level of Qi disciple. Wang Lin's expression was calm. Feeling that Lin Feng was looking at him, he raised his head and looked Lin Feng in the eyes, then nodded solemnly. Although his cultivation was still low, and although he couldn't progress as fast as the other 3 brothers, he also had his own goal in mind, and he was also willing to put in all of his effort for this goal and carry it out to the end. The other 3 calmed down, and Xiao Budian suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Master, during the process of building the foundation this time, disciple gained some new understanding of our sect's secret great way, the 8 diagrams great way of heaven. And it should be said that disciple comprehended a spell from it." "Oh. Little junior brother also gained something?" Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows, looked at Lin Feng and said with a smile, "I was about to report to Master, Disciple also comprehended a spell from the 8 diagrams Great Way of Heaven during this closed-door training. Zhu Yi's eyes flashed, and he said silently, Disciple also gained something, and I was about to ask Master for guidance. The three of them looked at each other. They were all young people, and their faces immediately revealed competitive expressions. Lin Feng leisurely smiled. He loved to pour cold water on people's heads the most. You have all been in the sect for some time, and have your own understanding of our sect's Taoist scriptures. Today, let's have an internal competition. Lin Feng pointed at Wang Lin, who was beside him. When I taught you the Taoist scriptures, little Lin also had some enlightenment after listening, and improved a spell that he had previously mastered. The 4 of you can compare notes with each other, and verify your understanding of the Taoist scriptures. Although Wang Lin only improved an existing spell, and didn't create his own spell like they did, hearing this, Xiao Yan and the other 2 were still shocked. Even if they didn't have any thoughts of looking down on him, Wang Lin's cultivation speed was indeed very different from theirs. However, the 3 of them had all comprehended spells from the Taoist scriptures on their own after building the foundation. Right now, Wang Lin's cultivation was only at the 4th level of Qi Disciple, which really made Xiao Yan and the others look at him in a new light. Xiao Yan became interested, and said with a smile, What Master said is exactly what I wanted. Junior brothers, let's play a few moves together. Chapter 109. What Master said is exactly what I wanted. Junior brothers, let's play a round or two. Xiao Yan said with a smile. Wang Lin looked at Lin Feng with a bit of surprise, pursed his lips, and said with a smile, Master, I'll pass. They've already built their foundation. Lin Feng shook his head. It's fine, it's just a spar, it's not a real life and death battle. I'll pour magic power into your body to ensure that you can complete the improved underworld finger. Different spells had different levels of power. For the user, there were 2 main thresholds. One was the difficulty of comprehending the spell, and the other was how much magic power the spell consumed. If one could comprehend the essence of the spell and had enough magic power to support it, a low-level cultivator could also use a powerful high-level spell. It was very likely that the opponent would be caught off guard, and the opponent with a higher level of cultivation would suffer grievances on the spot. Wang Lin thought for a bit, then looked at Xiao Yan and the other 2 and said, Let's just compare spells and not really fight, okay? The little guy said with a smile, 3rd senior brother, aren't you being too cautious? Wang Lin smiled and didn't say anything. When it was necessary, he would be more courageous than anyone else. However, this didn't mean that he would use his Qi Disciple level 4 cultivation to forcefully determine who was stronger than the 3 who had already built their foundation. That wasn't called having ambition, it was called having water in the head. Lin Feng nodded with a smile. That's right. Then Lin Feng turned his head to look at Xiao Yan and the others. Which one of you wants to spar with little Lin? The little guy shrunk his neck and didn't say anything. He thought, I'm not stupid. Sparring with 3rd senior brother is actually just being a target for him. I'll let him display what he's learned and demonstrate his spells. Master, please don't ask me for such a boring thing. Zhu Yi slightly frowned and remained silent. It seems that 3rd junior brother's comprehension is amazing, but his cultivation is still too low. Fighting with him would be an unfair victory. Xiao Yan turned his head to look at his 2 junior brothers and smiled. What? Neither of you plan to go? Okay, then I'll go first. Finished speaking, Xiao Yan walked to Wang Lin's side and said with a smile, 3rd brother, you must remember to leave me some face. Wang Lin smiled and clasped his hands. I should ask eldest senior brother to be lenient. The 5 of them found a quiet valley together. Lin Feng, Zhu Yi, and the little guy stood on top of the mountain peak, looking at Xiao Yan and Wang Lin on the flat ground of the valley. Lin Feng smiled and said, Those who didn't participate in the battle also open your eyes wide and look carefully. Zhu Yi and the little guy nodded and looked at Xiao Yan and Xiao Yan. If not for the support of Lin Feng's transcendence energy, the current Wang Lin would not be able to cast the complete version of the Finger of the Yellow Springs Nirvana. He could only use the original incomplete version. Watching Wang Lin cast the magical art, Lin Feng thought to himself, The 8 trigram scripture of the Great Way of the Heavens is really all-encompassing. Different people can have their own understanding when cultivating it. The principle of Lin Feng's Void of the Two Worlds technique was that within the range of Lin Feng's spell, there would be two spaces of a certain size, and their positions would be swapped. Therefore, no matter how fast Gao Long rode the Fei Lian beast, as long as he did not escape from the range of Lin Feng's spell, Lin Feng could instantly swap the space where Gao Long was in with the space in front of him, sending him back in front of him. The volume of the swapped space itself had a maximum limit. By carefully controlling the position and boundaries of the swapped space, it could form a powerful destructive force similar to splitting space. Gao Long was cut in half at the waist by Lin Feng. What cut him at the waist was not any saber or sword transcendence energy, but the swapped boundaries of the space. It was just that this technique consumed too much transcendence energy, so Lin Feng did not dare to use it too much. When he fought Gao Long, he had the intention of practicing his magical art. Otherwise, he would have killed Gao Long in the first move. Unless the opponent also had a magical art that could freeze space, or an artifact or treasure, when faced with this move of Lin Feng's without any preparation, most people would suffer a disaster. The 8 trigram scripture of the Great Way of the Heavens is a Tao technique that I created. I must carefully study the mysteries within it and completely understand this Tao technique. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing. Lin Feng thought to himself, moreover, this is only the first chapter of the Heavenly Tao Sutra. In the future, there will be even more profound Tao techniques. Just as Lin Feng was pondering, the situation of the battle had already begun to change. In the dead zone, Xiao Yan's transcendence energy surged around his body, resisting the invasion of the dead spirit qi on his body. At this moment, he did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Instead, he was stimulated by Wang Lin's heroic spirit in his bones. Third junior brother, I wonder how many fingers you can use? In the midst of his laughter, Xiao Yan's right hand formed a strange fist seal, and a majestic power gathered on his right fist. Xiao Yan punched forward, and invisible waves of air spread out in all directions. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed. He saw that when Xiao Yan punched out, the space around his body actually moved a little. The invisible power kept vibrating, layer upon layer, resisting the dead zone that enveloped Xiao Yan. The black dead spirit qi was like boiling water, tumbling nonstop. When the dead spirit qi came into contact with Xiao Yan's invisible power, it continuously disintegrated. The disintegrated black spirit qi disappeared, disintegrated into the most primitive spiritual qi. Wang Lin's transcendence energy in the dead spirit qi was completely blocked. Xiao Yan smiled and said, "Third junior brother, take my 8 trigrams disintegration." As he spoke, he punched again, and an extremely overbearing power pounced towards Wang Lin. Wherever the power passed, all the plants, clouds, mist, soil, and even the air were all disintegrated and turned into nothingness. Disintegration, disintegration, all disintegration. Wang Lin's expression was calm. He took a deep breath and pointed his finger again. All heaven yellow springs finger, reincarnation. As he pointed his finger, the 8 phenomena of heaven, earth, water, fire, wind, thunder, mountain, and swamp appeared in front of Wang Lin and arranged themselves according to the 8 trigrams, forming a halo. The halo spun rapidly, blocking Xiao Yan's domineering 8 trigrams disintegration. As it spun, it continuously disintegrated Xiao Yan's attacks, but the halo did not disintegrate. Instead, it swallowed the 8 trigrams disintegration like the Yellow Springs River in the cycle of life and death. Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. Interesting. As his transcendence energy surged, the third 8 trigrams disintegration was about to be released. Wang Lin smiled bitterly and dispersed the halo. He cupped his fists and said, "I only have these 3 moves. If I continue, I will make a fool of myself. Please show mercy, eldest senior brother." Xiao Yan opened his mouth in disappointment. What a pity. On the mountain peak, Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot also looked like they wanted to continue. Zhu Yi sighed. Third junior brother's technique is indeed extraordinary. It's a pity that his cultivation level is sigh. Tiny Tot nodded sympathetically. Lin Feng glanced at them and said lightly, A scholar who has been away for 3 days needs to be looked at in a new light. Who knows if little Lin's cultivation will improve by leaps and bounds in the future? You three go first. Be more alert. If little Lin surpasses you in the future, don't come crying to me. Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot were both stunned. After thinking for a while, their expressions became solemn. They bowed and said, I was complacent. Thank you, Master, for reminding me. Lin Feng nodded and said with a smile, How is it? Don't you feel satisfied? If not, then come down. The second round will be just the two of you. Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot looked at each other and smiled. Master, please guide me. Chapter 110. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yan and Wang Lin, who had returned to the mountain, and smiled. How was it? Did you learn anything? Xiao Yan and Wang Lin answered at the same time, I learned a lot. Lin Feng turned his head towards Xiao Yan and said, Your third junior brother's set of universal yellow springs fingers actually still has a third finger. Xiao Yan glanced at Wang Lin. Good boy, you still have a trick up your sleeve? Wang Lin laughed and cried out in grievance, Master, you have to finish what you want to say. Otherwise, eldest senior brother will not let me off. Lin Feng tapped Xiao Yan, smiling saying, It's just a monkey, don't be so impatient, let Master finish what I have to say. Xiao Yan chuckled. Lin Feng said, Little Lin, this third finger has other uses, it's not used to fight with people. Right now it's still not perfect, it needs to continue studying. Xiao Yan nodded. Just as he was about to say something, his attention was suddenly drawn to the bottom of the mountain. Little junior brother, this move is really beautiful. Lin Feng and Wang Lin also turned their attention to the fight that had just begun. On the empty ground, the little guy laughed. Second senior brother, I'll make the first move. I don't think you'll mind. After saying that, he put his palms together and then separated them horizontally. A hurricane rose from the little guy's left hand, and lightning flashed on his right hand, turning into a huge thunder blade that was over 30 meters long. The violent electric current was extremely ear-piercing. Compared to Breaking Gao Long's shattering hurricane formation, the little guy was now very familiar with controlling the hurricane thunder blade. The tornado wrapped around the thunder blade, and the power of wind and thunder surged continuously. They stimulated each other and both became stronger. The little guy suddenly jumped up from the ground and jumped dozens of meters high. He raised the huge hurricane thunder blade and slashed it down at Zhu Yi's head. Even though the momentum of the hurricane lightning blade is astonishing, no matter if it's Zhu Yi in the arena or Xiao Yan outside, they both revealed disappointed expressions. Xiao Yan muttered to himself, that shouldn't be the case. Is this all little brother has? Wang Lin also frowned, looked at Xiao Budian, and said in a heavy voice, maybe there are other changes. Lin Feng's heart moved, thinking of a possibility, saying, keep watching, your junior brother is not simple. In his heart, he thought, little guy, are you really as perceptive as I guessed? Zhu Yi faced Xiao Budian's hurricane thunder blade and shook his head. Junior brother, if this is all you have, then I can only say that you have been too lazy recently. With a wave of his hand, the sword hanging by his waist flew out of its sheath. It was just an ordinary sword, but it emanated an astounding brilliance. Swish, 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 swish. This is a sword technique that I have comprehended from my sect's Taoist scriptures. Please correct me, junior brother. Zhu Yi casually waved his sword 4 times in one go. The first sword was high and mighty like the heavens. It was arrogant and mighty. This was the heavenly sword. The second sword was thick and heavy like the earth. It was filled with the power of virtue. This was the earth sword. The third sword was fast and formless like the wind. It was traceless. This was the wind sword. The fourth sword was fast and violent. It was courageous and advanced. It was surging. This was the thunder sword. Zhu Yi consecutively waved his 4 swords of wind and thunder. Suddenly, the wind howled and thunderclouds surged. This sword technique, I call it the sword of change. Zhu Yi stood in the wind and thunder. He pointed his sword at Xiao Budian. This sword technique is called the thunder wind. The heavens are vigorous. A gentleman should never stop improving himself. The earth is vast. A gentleman should be virtuous. The wind is strong. A gentleman should act according to his will. The thunder is strong. A gentleman should cultivate with fear. The thunder is strong. A gentleman should never stop. Zhu Yi's thunder wind sword immediately dissolved Xiao Budian's hurricane thunder blade. The wind and thunder that filled the sky swept toward Xiao Budian. Xiao Budian's face showed no fear. He clapped his hands and laughed. Second senior brother, what an exquisite sword technique. His big black eyes shone with a dazzling brilliance. I don't understand those principles. I only know that the power of the previous blade was not enough. So from now on, I need to use more power. More and more, until you can't take it anymore. Xiao Budian clasped his palms together and slashed out again. His cute little face smiled slyly, continuously growing. Unlimited power. Second senior brother, can you take it? Zhu Yi's pupils shrank. He suddenly realized that there was a change in Xiao Budian's blade. The previous Hurricane Thunder Blade was an improved version of the Berserk Thunder Blade. The tornado wrapped around the lightning blade. Now, this blade was a berserk electric current that was densely wrapped around the sharp wind blade. Zhu Yi's heart moved. He vaguely caught a hint of inspiration. His thunder wind sword used thunder above and wind below. It also used thunder as the main power and wind as the support. Xiao Budian's blade now used wind as the main power and thunder as the support. The two powers were exactly the opposite. This time, Xiao Budian's thunder wind sword slashed into Zhu Yi's thunder wind sword with irresistible force. However, it did not directly destroy it. Instead, it resonated with the thunder wind sword. Xiao Budian laughed. Second senior brother's comprehension is amazing. Your sword of change encompasses all the changes of the 8 trigrams. I'm not that complicated. I only have the power of wind and thunder. Second senior brother, take my move. Unlimited wind and thunder. Xiao Budian's hands moved together. Under the effect of the spell, his thunder wind sword with wind as the main and thunder as the support, and Zhu Yi's thunder wind sword with wind as the main and thunder as the support formed a huge cycle. The two sides were clearly separated and did not interfere with each other. On one side, the lightning swept up the hurricane, and on the other side, the wind shrouded the thunder clouds. However, these two powers were like a natural Tai Chi diagram. The yin and yang rotated and merged into one. The yin and yang formed by wind and thunder. The Tai Chi formed by wind and thunder. Under the effect of the cycle, the wind and thunder surged. The power of both sides increased at an astonishing speed. The momentum of their growth seemed endless. On the mountain, Xiao Yan and Wang Lin both widened their eyes as they looked at the continuously increasing power of the wind and thunder cycle in midair. Lin Feng revealed a smile and sighed, as expected. Xiao Budian, you did not disappoint me. Wang Lin comprehended the true meaning of the 8 trigrams Heaven's Great Tao scripture and combined it with his yellow spring's finger. On the other hand, Xiao Yan's technique was like his person. He advanced bravely and destroyed the 8 trigrams with an unstoppable force. Zhu Yi was the most knowledgeable and had the deepest understanding of the 8 trigrams. He actually wanted to use the Yi Sword Dao to deduce the entire 8 trigrams. Xiao Budian and Zhu Yi took the opposite path. Indeed, in the 8 trigrams Heaven's Great Tao scripture, Xiao Budian only comprehended the changes of wind and thunder. However, he comprehended the changes of wind and thunder to the extreme. He even surpassed the 8 trigrams and grasped some of the mysterious principles of yin and yang. Lin Feng nodded as he watched. Although you have only touched the threshold, it is already commendable. The battle of techniques between the little guy and Zhu Yi just happened to be the most profound battle of all. Facing Xiao Budian's infinite wind and thunder technique, Zhu Yi's expression was solemn. Junior brother, this technique of yours is really powerful. In terms of the way of wind and thunder, even I have to admit defeat. However, it is still too early to determine the winner of this match. As he spoke, Zhu Yi combined his 2 swords into one and displayed another style of Sword of Yi. There is a mountain in the world, escape. A gentleman keeps his distance from a villain. Zhu Yi's two swords, the Heaven Sword and the Mountain Sword, overlapped each other and actually formed a escape trigram. There is a mountain in the world, escape trigram. The sword chi of the escape trigram was illusory. Zhu Yi's real body was hidden in the sword chi and suddenly disappeared without a trace. Xiao Budian's infinite wind and thunder had already locked onto Zhu Yi's position. However, when Zhu Yi used the mountain in the world, escape trigram sword, the overbearing infinite wind and thunder immediately lost its target. Xiao Budian chuckled and the wind and thunder in the sky returned to protect him. Sure enough, the air behind Xiao Budian shook slightly and Zhu Yi's figure appeared. It turned out that Zhu Yi did not escape far away. Instead, he came near Xiao Budian. Second senior brother, this escape technique of yours is even more mysterious and unpredictable than the Cloud Dragon escape. The little guy was on guard, so he naturally wouldn't give Zhu Yi an opportunity. Amidst his laughter, he used the surging wind and lightning to block Zhu Yi's sword. In close combat, second senior brother, you can't do it. Xiao Budian shouted and the violent chi and blood of his body spread out. His small body was like the cub of an ancient ferocious beast as he charged towards Zhu. Zhu Yi's expression was calm. Since his attack did not hit, he immediately used the mountain in the world, sword Dao, to escape again. Xiao Budian's body carried the wind and thunder and his speed was as fast as lightning. He was not much slower than Zhu Yi and chased closely behind Zhu. Zhu Yi did not dare to relax in the slightest. The battle between the two had already reached its climax. Xiao Yan and Wang Lin, who were watching from the mountain, were also beaming with joy. Lin Feng observed carefully for a moment and suddenly asked, "Let me test your judgment. Who do you think will win in the end?" You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.